time spinning away, and nobody open. Now he flips it up into traffic and makes a mistake. Trying to force the play, and it's intercepted. B.J. Mays rumbling down inside the 10.
This is 365 Sports.
Bowling Green with no timeouts. Nick Singleton. Touchdown, Penn State.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Klubnik, undaunted, unafraid, complete, Turner, touchdown!
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Why not?
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Jennings on the play fake, slides it upfield. Matthew Hickner off to the races. Hickner at the 30, full speed, and the big tight end goes 75. It's a Pony Express.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And also, good afternoon on 365 Sports every weekday afternoon, 3 until 6 on YouTube. We appreciate your time today. And we start with some tragic news as Baylor redshirt freshman defensive lineman Alex Foster from St. Joseph's High School in Greenville, Mississippi, was killed earlier this morning, and he is gone. And Baylor, of course, mourning his loss. Statements from Baylor University, both Mack Rhodes and Dave Aranda, heartbroken by the unexpected passing of Alex Foster, a beloved teammate, friend, and a cherished part of the Baylor family. Our thoughts and prayers are with Alex's family and all those who loved him. In this time of deep sorrow, we draw strength from our faith and the unwavering love of the Baylor community. Our immediate focus is on supporting Alex's family, teammates through his devastating loss. Alex's memory will forever be a part of Baylor University. Meanwhile, Baylor football coach Dave Aranda on his Twitter feed, he was a beloved member of the Baylor family, devastated by his loss. And in his time at Baylor, he made a long-lasting impact on all of us in the program. Hearts are broken. Our prayers are with his family, friends, and all of those who loved him so deeply. I did see some others, players, teammates from Baylor University, Taz Williams, among others, who were obviously Kamari and Morgan, very shook up by the news from earlier today.
Yeah, very, very tragic story. And, we didn't know him. He was just here for, a year, redshirt last year. So very tragic for someone who's 19 years old to die so suddenly like that.
Yeah, it's out of nowhere, and it's definitely a major tragedy if you're a parent sending your kid out. I know there's this level of worry that you always have, and I imagine that extends to football coaches as well, and you send them home for the summer, and you expect them back here in the next week, as was the plan with Alex, and you just hope that they stay safe and make good decisions and are going to be okay, and they'll be back to play and go to class and do all the things that people who are in their 20s do. And in the case of Alex Foster, he went back home, and that's where his story, unfortunately, ends, and so abruptly, so suddenly, and just shockingly. And so there's some details that are coming out about it. It appears that it was a shooting from the Clarion Ledger. He's a Mississippi kid, so he was back home in Mississippi, and he was a former Star High School football player there, but he was 18 years old. Mm-hmm. Greenville Police Department said that at 12:11 a.m., on May 28th, so earlier today, I guess right as the day was starting, they responded to a shots fired call at 1800 East Alexander Street, where police found a male shot multiple times in a car. He was transferred to Delta Health Center and died 35 minutes later. They didn't release the name, but it's been, put out there that this was obviously involving Alex Foster. So, just a terrible loss for his family, his community, and also for Baylor football and Baylor University. And I've seen all the people, whether it's the Big 12 Conference or various other programs, putting out their messages of support. So I think that's much appreciated. Can't imagine what the family's going through, and just awful news to wake up to, and awful for a young person with so much promise and talent to have that ripped away. And, just terrible. It's terrible news.
Blake Levine, by the way, who does a Magnolia Shine podcast, is the one who had the news earlier today. He covers that area from Mississippi, and so he was the one that first reported the news. And, yeah, it shakes up everybody. I talked to a couple of people within media relations, and obviously everybody, their thoughts and prayers to the family of Alex Foster. Meanwhile, college football media days, that's not until July, but various spring meetings. We've talked a lot about the SEC, and now the Big 12 has gotten theirs underway. Big 12 commissioner, this is from Brandon Marcello, Brett Yormark telling CBS Sports that he had great conversation with the league's athletic directors earlier today, and they are aligned on their preference, which is the 5 automatic qualifiers and 11 at-large model. Big 12 coaches will meet with Yormark on Thursday to discuss this plan further.
Yeah, this is the plan. I would say that the Big 12 and the ACC should be supporting. I think that most coaches, actually, if you ask them, support this plan, because it, you could get 6 as opposed to if you have 4 automatic qualifiers. And this is one of the things I would ask the Big 10 specifically about, because the SEC knows this. I would ask the Big 10 specifically about this. So if you have 4 automatic qualifiers and then you have to give 5 more away, that you are begrudgingly doing, where you're giving away 5 spots that, or at least, 3 spots that could go to you if you had this magical year. And with 18 teams, God in heaven knows how the schedule could align some years, and so I think that the 5 plus 11 is the one that's going to have the most steam. But again, if the SEC and Big 10 decide to do this automatic qualifier thing, I don't know how much there is everybody else can do about it other than shout until they decide not to do it.
I don't think any conference really knows what they're going to back. There's kind of a split between ADs, Craig, coaches, and others, even maybe the commissioners of the conference. But your thoughts about and this one here, 5 automatic qualifiers, the top 5 rated conference champions, and 11 free-for-all from 6 through 16.
Well, yeah, if you read Sankey and what he's had to say over the last few hours, then I think there is support for this. And amongst the coaches, the feeling is, according to him, that why wouldn't we like this? We stand to benefit greatly from it because we should have our cake and be able to eat it too without having to put it in writing that that's what we get automatically. And that's what has been the big point of contention, is that people are fine if you have a 12-team playoff and there's 6 SEC teams that make it because they deserve it, but to sit there and say, well, 4 make it just because they play in the league is just absurd, and it's stupid, and people don't like it, and rightfully so. And if you're an SEC fan, if you're about that action, boss, which I think that they are, then I don't know what you're scared of. I don't know what you're worried about. So this, to me, could benefit them as much as anybody, just like every plan will benefit them, but this actually gets rid of all of the hey, we're going to bake it into the cake and it's not even going to be a debate or anything like that. Like, dude, you're still going to get just as many, if not more, without trying to control the sport. And so I think this is maybe not the best plan for everybody. I haven't broken it down on each individual level, but I do think it's one that's rife with opportunity for everybody. It's a more even playing field, and it's not this absurd let's just, take over half the playoff and then let's everybody else has to go earn it, but we just have to finish 4th in our league. I think there's something, to having the play-in games and all these other things, but the big dust-up was over the amount of automatic qualifiers. So I think this solves that problem, and there couldn't be any complaining about it because, hey, go win your conference you're in, and then everybody else, you got to fight to be one of the top teams, and you earn your way in, and that's all that anybody's asking for. That's all anybody's asking for, is just to at least make it appear as though you're earning your way in, not that you're just blessed to be in the playoff because you are the 5th best team in the league that crowns itself all the time. So that's a logical solution, and I think that everybody's calmed down from yesterday, and people are maybe realizing, in the case of Greg Sankey, that he didn't know what he was talking about. in regards to the press releases and that he wasn't correct in what he was saying. And maybe others realize that they can scale it back too. And everybody's got a more level head and has breathed a little bit after the weekend meetings. And now let's get back to business.
They also weren't just talking about him.
What do you mean?
Like when they say the good of college football, there's another guy who doesn't talk. Whose proposal that was.
All right, here's Greg Sankey, by the way, to Brett McMurphy earlier today, asked if he had heard from any of the other commissioners after his comments on Tuesday. No, they're probably as entertained as anyone else. We all have thick skins. Also, on top of that, a couple of reactions to yesterday's news and how what was said and who reacted to it. Jeff Schwartz. The SEC hasn't won a football championship in 2 seasons after winning 6 of the first 9 playoff years, and now the system is broken and needs fixing. Laugh my you-know-what off. Also, efficient lending with his thoughts. I just put up this yesterday, again, that the SEC, as powerful as they are, I don't get why they are still constantly like asking for something free because they're going to get it anyway. But from efficient lending, I'm confused. If every team in the SEC is so good, why do they need automatic bids? Count me as a diehard college football and basketball fan that has moved on. I will let my season tickets go, stop wasting my time and money on a horrendous fan experience. The hubris of the SEC is simply stunning. Now, I don't always believe it when somebody says, I'll never watch somebody again, because I think that's just like right the way you feel now. That's fine. But there's a couple of reactions on that from earlier today.
I mean, that's fine. That's just everybody's got an opinion. So I guess Mike does too. I don't know why it really matters any differently than others, but it's somebody that's out there that feels a certain type of way. So yay, guy that doesn't want to root for college sports anymore, I guess. That's his prerogative. And I'm sure there's other people that feel the same way as that. I'm not one of them. I do think that there's a lot of opinions floating around, and we can have more conversation about the 5 and 11 and all of that, but I don't really have much to say about his comments in particular.
Well, just going back to Sankey saying they have thick skin. Well, do you, Greg? I mean, he probably does.
That was a slight show of sense of humor, right?
I don't know. I mean, like I just read it.
I think so. I think it was. Yeah, I think it obviously was.
But I mean, maybe it was, but saying we all have thick skin the day after you're like, don't talk about me that way.
I got a feeling he may have heard from people, maybe not your Mark or maybe not Phillips, but a few others.
Maybe
right?
he realized that he didn't know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
And so maybe he realizes like, oh, maybe I went a little bit too hard because they didn't coordinate press releases. They were responding to an ESPN article, as it said in the ESPN article. The Big 12 issued this statement in response to ESPN's questions. Yep. He made it sound like they had organized a press release and they put it out simultaneously to attack him personally, and he acted like a baby. And so maybe, he realized, oh, wait, they didn't do what I said that they did, and maybe I wasn't fair to attack them both. I don't know. I think it's all water under the bridge now. Everybody got all, overmodulated the last couple of days with all the reports that were out there, and he realizes maybe he needs to calm down, and everybody else realizes that, there's still talking to be done, and the 5 and 11, I think that lightens the mood again because people realize they're not just going to ram through some, evil master plan that it feels like they're trying to do sometimes when you read these headlines. But I also will say, be careful what you wish for, because 5 and 11 could actually still benefit them more than anybody else. Because guess what, Big 12, you don't have a second guaranteed spot in this format. So, you would think 16, you're going to have one. Guess what? You wouldn't have had second one last year. So it would have been a bigger field, 4 more teams, and it still would have just been Arizona State in there. So, I mean, I like that they're backing off the auto qualifiers, but you got to also be mindful of that also means you're not guaranteed 2. Or in the case of the ACC, you're not guaranteed 2 either. Now, they would have been fine last year. They would have had Clemson and SMU, and I don't know where the third team would have been in the rankings.
Miami might have been right in that
I don't know
area.
where they were in the top 16 or what off the top of my head. But, I do think that backing away from just forcing through the original idea, which is never really the way that it happens. It always gets talked about and workshopped. And maybe this was actually their plan all along. I wouldn't put it past them to cause a big ruckus. Everybody flips out and they go, fine, we'll do 5 and 11. And then guess what? 1 Big 12 team gets in and maybe 2 ACC get in. And then guess who gets 6 or 7 teams in? They do. So I don't think they're ever not planning or working some concept, and so I'm leery of really anything. But I said last week I was in more favor of the setup just because I thought 2 automatic qualifiers was ultimately kind of hard to pass up, and you are passing that up if they go to 5 and 11. So again, be careful what you wish for.
Jeremiah Dickey of Boise State, the director of athletics, will join us here at the bottom of the hour today to start our guest list of 4 people. Brian Kelly says SEC coaches favor a scheduling partnership with Big Ten, giving to 2 leagues 1 non-conference game annually against each other. The Big Ten's in favor only if and when the SEC adds a 9th league game.
Yeah. Well, that was the only thing that would make sense for the Big Ten is, if they're going to play 8 and you're going to play 9, and then you're going to give them, a non-conference game, then you have one more chance to lose in your league. Where they can schedule somebody else. It wouldn't be equitable. And I just, again, with the scheduling thing, it's not just like they need to change, like they need to look at it. I think part of the problem is that when we talk about the schedules and the conference games and the transfer portal and recruiting calendar and all this, they're looking at that as like one-off issues. Like, okay, when do we put this? Because this is here. I think they need to look at it as, okay, let's put everything out here on these are all the ingredients we have to get into this sauce. Let's start and do that. I think that's really kind of, like Kirby Smart, like the biggest issue is the transfer portal. Well, you got to figure out what your antitrust situation is before you can really, say it's going to be this time or that time. You got to figure out if you're ever going to collect a bargain, like all these things. That's why they just need to put them all out on the table at once.
Here's the thing. They do that, but they just keep kicking the can down the road on many things.
Which is why
the winter meetings, and now you're having the spring meetings, and then you're going to have the media days, and you're going to be just full circle.
Think of it this way, Smokey. If you were like in the emergency room with 5 injuries, and they're like, hey, listen, we're going to make sure that none of them kill you, but we're not going to treat them all at once. And you're like, why? Do you have to wait? And they're like, no, we just really want to worry about
that. We got to stop the fact that your carotid artery is bleeding.
That's where they need to attack this all at once to figure it out. I think that's part of the problem is they're one-offing all the issues.
I think they're trying to come to a consensus. It's difficult because there's so many moving parts. So, it's going to take some time to get it all figured out. And obviously things have shifted just from yesterday, right? I mean, what were we talking about yesterday? Yep. And now it's 24 hours later. So, imagine it from their standpoint. But yeah, there are things that you would like to see get done that do feel like they're dragging along, and the schedule is one of them. But I'll say this because I've seen various different comments about what the 9th game would require. How much would ESPN pay, or what would the non-conference schedule look like, or all of these different things. I just like that the Big Ten saying we're only doing it if you do 9 games. So I like that. Now, I think there's also, if they do that, and we talked about this last week, if you're let's say South Carolina, and all of a sudden you're playing a Big Ten team, and then you're still going to play Clemson, well, that leaves you 1 game, and you're not going to play Texas Tech. You're going to play Towson. You're going to play the Citadel. The teams that those teams usually play late in the year to get bowl eligible in some cases, or just further pad their resume. That's going to be their 1 gimme game if there is a Big Ten scheduling agreement for most schools, because they have their built-in rivalry game. Now, some of them might not have that. Like Texas doesn't have that anymore. All their rivals are in the SEC. So I don't know how it would work for each individual school, but somebody like South Carolina suddenly has 1 gimme game on the schedule. So you can kind of see where they're coming from with strength of schedule. If your non-conference is a Big Ten team, let's just say you draw a good one, and then you're also playing Clemson, and then you're playing a 9-game conference schedule, and you're playing your 1 gimme game, like, wouldn't you bitch about strength of schedule too? Yeah. If you're looking over at West Virginia and you're saying, you're not playing the same schedule that we're playing. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just too I look at it from everybody's point of view, but I think ultimately we all want them to play the same amount of conference games. And what does it take to get them there? In this case, maybe it's the Big Ten prodding them. And if that gets it done, then great, because as a college football fan, I would much rather see them play an extra conference game than watch them play Directional State University in week 13 or whatever. So yeah, as a college football fan, give me more potential big matchups, but it still sounds like it's very much a work in progress.
We mentioned Brian Kelly, LSU, AD Scott Woodward on uncertainty in college athletics. I do have grave concerns about where this is going, what's going to happen, even within our conference and even within the Power Four. Where and how does this thing evolutionize, and what do we turn into? That's from a guy who's never going to be a part of anything other than the upper level discussion, no matter what the future is of college athletics. But even he saying that, hey, I'm not so sure where we're going. And I'm not going to put words in his mouth about maybe he does think about what is good for the game or good in the game, whatever you want to say. But there's Scott Woodward from LSU. And again, they will never have to worry about if there's a seat at the table, whatever the future may hold.
No, but I mean, he's also been in other places.
Yep.
And he's been now, granted, look, he's been the last three jobs were Washington, A&M, and LSU. So, he's flown first class, and first class. It's not like he was in the middle seat on Southwest for those last three, but he's been other places. And I appreciate him saying this. And this is one of the guys who's helped shoot coaching salaries through the ceiling. He's the one who made the Jimbo deal. And so look, I think that, if you look at it and you can say, like, it's fine to admit that, like, maybe this is the party line of the SEC, but I don't know where this is headed. I don't know if that's really going to look good if we don't.
There's not an AD in the country that doesn't have those same, some kind of idea of concerns.
And that's the thing is the ADs pretty much all have this because, look, here's the thing. Scott Woodward is, a couple of bad seasons away from being, at a different school where they don't have those advantages. So as an AD, you have to have that perspective as where, the university president, doesn't normally get fired over the football team. It's happened before, but they usually get let go because of other things. So, he's got different perspective, and I appreciate
most university presidents don't get let go unless there's some sort of like awful issue when it comes to a scandal or some financial issues going on. Most ADs get fired because the performance of the coaches underneath of them, who they hired or not.
On the one hand, he has nothing to worry about. On the other hand, I guess it's reassuring or maybe slightly alarming that he has no better idea than anybody else about what the future holds. So that is good to know that we're all on the same page there, that nobody quite understands what the future is going to look like. But I guess you could also say it's a bit concerning that a guy who you would think would be at one of the schools that would have some idea doesn't have an idea. So if you've always believed that they're basically driving blind, then you would be correct. And they're making it up as they go along in some ways or trying to best make it up as best they can. But yeah, I don't think anybody has a great grasp, even those that are at the schools that really don't have nearly the long list of concerns that others do. Not that they are without concerns entirely, but their concerns are much different and much less worrisome than the concerns of a lot of the smaller schools around them.
Hey, one quick note. Yesterday during Off the Radar, Craig showed the EA Sports, the college football 2026 in different covers, but Jeremiah Smith, Ohio State, Ryan Williams of Alabama were the ones who were the cover boys in a way. Chris Fanini had a note from yesterday evening that they were both considering playing at Georgia, signing or committing and signing with Georgia. Williams is the one who brought it up. He ended up at Alabama. Smith, of course, at Ohio State. Would have been crazy. I don't know how you stop that, but that's a note from yesterday's cover of EA Sports 2026 college football.
I mean, they still could have gone together to any school that they wanted to. But I guess that Georgia was the one maybe that they agreed upon that they'd both want to go to, which would be really scary. And I know a couple people who hear that and are mad, and one of them is Carson Beck, because he, for all the trials and tribulations of Carson Beck, part of the problem that Georgia had last year is they didn't have dynamic playmakers like they used to. And when you have the two most dynamic playmakers in the country going, hey, we were this close to going to Georgia and then decided to go different ways. Like, if I'm Carson Beck, even though I've moved on to other pastures, I don't know about greener ones, but a different thing, I'd be like, oh, come on, man. I don't want to hear this again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's I will compare it to my own personal sadness is that Randy Moss was redshirting at Florida State when he got kicked out for marijuana for weed. Like, how many guys smoke weed? And he got kicked out for weed and would have been on the team. Instead, he had to go to Marshall. So I'm still bummed.
Yeah, great Isn't that awesome headline, Georgia fans?
Yeah.
That's got to.
What if?
Yeah.
Right. Cool. You got 0 of those 2. So yeah, that's great. That would have been really cool. Great. Yeah.
Good for you,
Yay.
right?
That would have been awesome. We didn't get either one of them.
By the way, one quick note before we come back with Jeremiah Dickey at Boise State. I was watching this late into the night. Scott Wright, who covers Oklahoma State, we've had him on the show. Late into the night in extra holes, Oklahoma State beat Ole Miss in match play. That's Lee, one of the players at Oklahoma State, who sank about an 8-foot, maybe a little bit less than that putt for par to win that match. They are Virginia and Oklahoma State playing tonight for the national championship in men's golf. So a good note there for Oklahoma State and their incredible tradition when it comes to men's golf.
Yeah, they're a juggernaut. I mean, as golf teams go, they're always, and then, I'll watch. There'll be guys I even you don't know if you don't follow college golf, but I'll be watching a tournament and then they'll show Victor Hovland who went there, and then like he'll walk up on another golfer. It's like, oh, there's this old college teammate. I'm like, how many PGA guys do you just throw out there at Oklahoma State? They're ridiculous.
They have many. That Ricky Fowler, Hovland, Charles Howell. I go back to the days of Scott Verplank, who I covered when he was an amateur in high school in the state of Texas. When we come back, Jeremiah Dickey. He popped off on a little tweet last week at the end of the week about, hey, why don't you guys just say you're doing all this because of us? He's next, Boise State's Director of Athletics. We appreciate your time. Please hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. And this is 365 Sports.
Big with Employee Pricing Plus at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive home a new Chrysler Dodge Jeep or Ram with smoking hot deals that slay the competition. Only at Allen Samuels. You're gonna love it here.
Come by. Let's be friends.
I'll never get used to this.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
The Jeep Celebration event is on at Allen Samuels. Get the luxurious 2024 Jeep Grand Wagoneer with a huge $13,000 dealer discount plus 0% financing. Big savings, legendary Jeeps at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
One note, I saw this as I was about to leave for the studio. Texas Tech announcing their next 3 players to be inducted into the Texas Tech Football Hall of Fame. Ryan Aycock is one of them. Also, Aaron Hunt, who is actually the general manager now for Dave Aranda at Baylor, but a stud at Texas Tech in football, and B.J. Simons, the quarterback.
B.J. Simmons,
the quarterback at Texas Tech, also is a part of that group that will be inducted into the Texas Tech Hall of Fame. So we'll have more information on that. Teams do that, and so those 3 guys. Simmons was one that gets overlooked a lot, put up huge numbers because of all the other quarterbacks that Texas Tech has had over the years. We got him?
Not yet. I'm
waiting on Jeremiah Dickey, Director of Athletics at Boise State.
And B.J. Simmons is one of those great Mike Leach quarterbacks. He probably gets lost in the shuffle with Kingsbury and some other guys, but I know that he is top of mind for a lot of Red Raider fans. I know a lot of Red Raider alums that love B.J. Simmons, and that's a nostalgia laden time period, I think, for a lot of Red Raider fans, those early 2000s, and just all the great quarterbacks and fun offenses and everything that came with that they had. So cool for him. And then, Aaron Hunt as well, like you said, general manager at Baylor now, has done a great job in helping out Dave Aranda with the recruiting side of things, amongst, I guess, the various other duties that he has, but that's really where he stood out to me, at least originally. And so he's been a valuable member of their coaching staff, and seen a lot of those types of announcements for schools, just retiring numbers or putting people in their Hall of Fame or things like that. I guess it's the time of year for all of that. So that seems like 3 really worthy candidates, and good for them. Congratulations to them.
Okay, if Texas Tech fans had to pick a second favorite quarterback of all time, we know who the first one is. It's Patrick Mahomes. Like, if they had to pick a second. Of those guys that played for Leach, I would think that's the real contest there. So who do you think they would pick?
I could be wrong, but I think it's Graham Harrell.
I think it's probably Graham Harrell, and I think Texas Tech fans would be able to best answer that in the chat room.
I'm curious.
Kim Coulter and Katie Rader.
And again, maybe Patrick Mahomes is not your favorite, but just based on how much they love him and how great he's been for the university.
I think it'd be better to, Patrick's in his own category because Patrick didn't play for Mike Leach.
Yeah.
So I think when you think of
B.J.
Simmons,
Mike Leach guy?
you think of all of the guys that played for Leach specifically, and that's like a different category of guys.
Kingsbury and Graham Harrell and Sonny Cumbie and
B.J. Simmons.
Baker Mayfield.
Others.
Davis Webb. Yeah, no. One of the he won some awards when he was at Tech, but one of the things, he initially broke Ty Detmer's record for passing yards in a season. And then Bailey Zappi broke it at Western Kentucky, but 5,833 yards on a team that went 8-3 out of Cypress Creek High School in the Houston area. So with yesterday, there was a lot of discussion with what was going on because the SEC was having their spring meetings, the Big 12, and eventually everybody else will have theirs too. Today seemed like, and we discussed it with a couple of the comments that were made, it seemed like, you think anybody reached out to Sankey and said, hey, why don't you calm down a little bit, even though he's the czar or the comrade or whatever you want to call him? You think that there were at least a couple that said, hey, man, we might even agree with what you're saying, but you need to back down a little bit?
First of all, Big 12 meetings are underway now.
That's
in
what
Orlando.
I said.
And so they are going to probably start having some media bites that come from there, and we can have some things to talk about there. But I don't know how Greg Sankey has people around him operating. I think, like I said earlier, that he probably realized because somebody said in his ear, or maybe he realized it himself, that he wasn't correct in what he was talking about. So, I don't know if he has some guy next to him that informs him on whatever, but regardless of how he found out about it or regardless of how he decided to take a different tone today, I'm glad that he did, because it felt like he was just getting all a little bit too rambunctious and kind of snippy, and he was as much a part of that as anybody because he directed his comments at the Big 12 and the ACC when he had no reason to do so. So, I'm sure somebody has probably said, like, hey, you realize that you're not really fully informed on what you're talking about here. And he's a smart enough guy to realize maybe I should crack a joke or just back off a little bit. I don't know. But glad that it got cleared up and that everybody's a little bit lighter in a lighter mood today than the last couple
I spoke
days.
with Clark Williams of the Big 12. There will be some audio from Yormark. That was the quote from Marcelo earlier when he said he had a conversation with Brett Yormark and what he said about the coaches and where they are with the college football playoff model as that goes on. And there will be some audio. The basketball coaches were available. Bill Self, one of them, just a couple of them, 2 or 3 of them today in Orlando. We're now joined by Boise State Director of Athletics, Jeremiah Dickey. He joins us. Great to see you. Craig and Paul, David Smoak. Thank you, Jeremiah, for your time today. So I saw where you happened to notice a little bit of the conversation about the college football playoff and Boise State rule or whatever it might be. Did you get any feedback from that?
One, guys, it's good to see you. Yeah, I got a lot of feedback. But I don't know, Smoke. At this point, we understand, we can see it. I think everyone can see what's happening. And, at the end of the day, especially as a leader, we got to speak up. And, the way I look at it, what do we have to lose? We've been navigating this for many years, if not decades, and the haves versus have-nots. And I owe it to the people I serve, my student athletes, my staff, and my supporters here to speak up when I see things maybe happening that I don't agree with.
JD, the athletic directors have a much better grasp on this. And I'm not trying to dog the presidents here, but like for every president that knows a lot about sports and understands it, there's probably 4 more that it's just a very small part of their job. So they're kind of, getting the fact sheet from the athletic director of like, here's what we need to, here are the key points. How much do you feel is there a disconnect on the future, especially when you think about the Big Ten and SEC presidents who have certain directives against everybody else and the athletic directors who have maybe different ideas about how it's actually functional as opposed to because you're on the ground day to day?
Yeah, I think to a certain extent there's a level of disconnect. But I also, that's not coming from a place of judgment. Higher education is in general changing and college athletics is in a very chaotic time. And right now is time for adaptive leadership. We cannot operate the same way. The idea of doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, obviously insanity. That's not something that I can live with. I can live with failure, but I can't live without trying and putting our best foot forward and speaking the truth. And right now, I think leaders across our industry, which includes a lot, there are a lot of cooks in the kitchen. You have conference commissioners, you have presidents, you have athletic directors, you have mini conferences at this point, and then you have this NCAA, association that we're all under. I think it makes it very challenging. One of the biggest issues that I see in our industry is the lack of unity. We are professionalizing. That ship is sailed, and we have to figure out how to do it in a way that it can be sustainable. And what I'm seeing in our industry right now is not sustainable. How it's impacting our staff, our people, even our student athletes, and some of the things that we're teaching them, and bad habits, I would say. That hits home for me. I take my responsibilities very seriously. Not perfect by any means, and I don't have all the answers, but I definitely think that there are a lot of people who have a seat at the table, and that becomes a challenge. And I think everyone's having to adapt appropriately to what this industry is, what it means to everyone, what our why is, and how we navigate what's ahead. And that inherently has been difficult.
Jeremiah, I think what becomes confusing for a lot of people is the lack of leadership or just like the lack of a clarity on a chain of command. So like for you, I mean, do you just go to your school president, or when you have issues, like how does that process work? Do you go to your conference? I mean, how do you get to a point where everybody's talking about the same thing and it's all going in the same direction as opposed to going in all different directions? Or is that the major part of the problem?
Well, I probably approach it a couple different ways. A big part of my job is to create unity, and we're very vocal and transparent with what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it. And that's important to me as a leader. But, there are, like I said, a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And, when you look at the conference we're in, and we're in a very, I would say an uncomfortable situation. We're in one conference, we're transitioning to another conference. I'm going through a presidential change as we speak. But traditionally, I'm going to our president and I'm making sure there's alignment. Then I'm going to other ADs within our own conference, making sure I'm seeing everything the way I'm supposed to see it. Then I'm going to our commissioner and making sure that we're speaking the same language. And then, I probably use social media, some may say negatively, I don't know. But I'm going to be out there and I'm going to be giving my opinion, and I'm not saying I'm always right. And there's still a lot to educate myself on and learn from. A lot's happening in our industry. And so I think right now for leaders, this is our opportunity to step up. Legacy is important to me, guys, and value is important. And I see an industry that I love. And I chose college athletics very specifically and not the professional route. And I understand, it's changing and change is inevitable. And so I can embrace that. But I still feel like we are living insanity. And we talk out of both sides of our mouth. And there currently isn't a sustainable model that I see that exists. That means we need to be very vocal and transparent with what we need and how we get there. And that's getting the right people in the room. And it starts with building consensus and being vocal and talking about these things, probably more so now than ever. There's always a lot of meetings and conferences and whatever else, and you have a lot of side conversations, but there's always this inherent fear. What if I say something that upsets everybody? Mm-hmm. Well, at this point, I'm as I sit here today, what do I have to lose? I know what we're facing. I know what's happening in our industry. And if I don't do it, hopefully others will, but I can't sleep at night knowing that I had an opportunity and I now have a seat at the table. It's easy to judge when you're not in this chair. But now I have a seat at the table and I'm going to, speak my truth and I'll be willing to, if I miss something, then I'll be willing to wear that. But I think now's the time for leaders to step up and truly lead.
Do you think other commissioners in other of the Power Four, or even Notre Dame with Bavak, with the director of athletics, do you think they care what others think around the game? Because sometimes you wonder.
Yeah, I can't. It's hard for me to answer that. I believe that that they do care about their student athletes and in the conferences they're in, and obviously competitive excellence is something we're all striving for, and each commissioner, each AD, they're doing what's best for he or she, but like I said before, I think that's part of our problem. Now I don't have all the solutions, but, we have a very fractured industry and, there is a lot less unity in something that has a tremendous amount of value, whether monetarily or how we're preparing our student athletes for life. And, to me, that's the start of creating something that is epic, that's sustainable, that can lead to something bigger and better. But yeah, I would say they care. I absolutely think they care. At some point, what's best for me isn't necessarily best for us. And, and that's where leadership is so important. And that legacy piece is so important. And what do we want this to look like? Not today, not tomorrow, but 5-10 years from now. Do I want to be in this chair 10 years from now saying I shoulda, coulda, woulda? I don't, and I don't believe many leaders want to do that. And I think that's where the conversations start. What do we want this to be? And how do we account for all the moving pieces? There's 134, give or take. I feel like maybe my number's off. You guys can correct me, but 134 FBS teams. Like there has to be a solution. Maybe we haven't found it yet, but there has to be a solution. We've thrown out promotion relegation. We've thrown out other options and opportunities over the course of time, internally, externally, whatever that may look like. What something has to work. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results is not a solution. And, and that's what bothers me. That's where I was vocal about the rule. Like, does it change? I heard some feedback that Arizona State, was part of the reason why. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I don't know. I just know that we heard a lot of talk and I got asked by a lot of media members going into the CFP, about us getting that bye and how that was going to impact. And lo and behold, 6-7 months later, however long it's been, the rule has changed. It's hard for me to sit back and say, well, that wasn't because this group of 5 team that maybe doesn't have as much respect as others and, had gotten that by. And now all of a sudden the rule changes. It is what it is. We're going to play the hand that's been dealt. We're going to still compete at a high level, and it's always what's next for me. But I'm going to be vocal on things that I see that maybe I don't believe are appropriate.
You mentioned the professionalization of college sports that is not coming. It's here, it's more and more. How do you feel personally about collective bargaining? I ask every AD that we have, because that seems to be, it's complicated, but it seems to be the least complicated and most lasting solution if it were to happen.
Yeah, look, complicated for sure. A lot of that ties into the unity or lack thereof that we have as an industry, and there's reasons for that. There's no blame or judgment. This is how it's been set up, but to me, that is an opportunity. And at minimum, we should be curiously questioning collective bargaining. Why aren't we collective bargaining? What are the hurdles that we need to navigate? Whether it's political, whether it's presidential, whether it's, from a commissioner standpoint, like what are the hurdles that we need? And every state's different. I understand there's different state laws. But yeah, I believe in collective bargaining. I think that is the route we should go. I think that's something that we need to, at minimum, run the ground balls out on and have some conversation around creating a model that makes sense. Right now, we're hopeful as an industry that it's going to change. It's going to change. It's going to change. And some changes are coming, and we're still waiting on the House settlement and all of that. But at the end of the day, I don't see another solution other than collective bargaining. And obviously there's ramifications to that. But I feel like that needs to be a topic of conversation for athletic directors, for conference commissioners, for our industry in general.
Jeremiah, could you explain what the fear is for those that don't want to pursue the CBA? Just for the people that don't follow along as closely, like myself, that don't understand it ultimately, of like why that's such a boogeyman. What are the fears of collective bargaining and why so many are hesitant to go down that route?
I mentioned it before, and I don't have specifics. It's been challenging. Some ADs will want to talk about it, some don't, and I understand everyone has their reasons. I think a lot of it is political. And depending on what state you're in and how your state would perceive it, I think that's a big piece. And I would assume, guys, and this is an assumption, I'm not the smartest guy, but I curiously question everything. I would assume it's maybe a lack of knowledge just in terms of what, going down that road would mean for everyone. And, sometimes when we don't understand things, we tend to pivot from them. And, I think that's where the conversation should start. And that may not be a popular opinion, but that's okay. I'm one opinion of many. And, I do know what we're doing currently. I don't believe it's sustainable. I've heard a lot about market correction and what we're paying. And, I do believe there's a path. I do believe student athletes should get paid, but I think the CBA is something that really needs to, we really need to do a deep dive in. I also have heard that it may be a competitive advantage not to do one for some. And, but that doesn't mean it's the right decision. Once again, I go back to, what I want my legacy to be. And I want to make a difference, appropriately so, in a positive way. And I very much care about our why, which is preparing our student athletes for life. And that's something that means a lot to me. And can we find, a path that is more positive, that we can create a sustainable system, because you're seeing it nationally right now. I believe Oklahoma just came out and they're cutting, some of their budget, and you're seeing sport programs being dropped at certain schools. And those are such difficult decisions. I have so much empathy for those athletic directors, because they've gotten to a place that for them to compete and for them to continue to move forward, that they have to divest. And some may say we need to anyways. And I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. But a lot of us are already operating, at what maybe the industry would deem average, in terms of our budgets and having just gone to the CFP and looking at what we have versus what everyone else has. There's not much more I can cut. And, so we have to figure out a better model, and I'm all ears to, if it's not going down the collective bargaining road, There has to be a solution. We know where the issues are, but there has to be a solution.
Yeah, Jeremiah, there's so many things, as you mentioned, that are not set. They're not official. They're kind of gray areas. And there's a lot of these, as you mentioned, whether committees or whatever, meetings and do you get sick of the meetings without anything getting done? Is it to a point where everybody should be closed inside this big room and you can't leave until everything's official?
It's funny you say that, Smoak. I talk to my staff about that all the time. Better or worse, I'm a ready, aim, fire type person. And, I said it earlier, I can live with failure. I can't live without trying. And, I do, there is a level of frustration that when you go to these meetings and we talk and so much is fear-based or assumptions and it just that lack of movement and progress. I hold myself to a very high standard. I hold my team to a high standard, and our goal is to make progress, and that doesn't always show up in win columns, but I always feel there's a solution. There's not much in life that I feel if you don't get the right people in the room that you can't find a better path and better way of operating and doing business. We are facing a lot of challenges as an industry right now, and we've heard about it. It's scheduling. It's the lack of unity I've talked about. It's house settlement and payment of student athletes and transfer portals and the 24/7 free agency and tampering, which really isn't tampering. I guess if everyone's doing it, that's something that, it probably impacts us a little bit more because we've had success and a lot of our student athletes are on everyone's radar. And that's a point of pride maybe for us, but there are a lot of challenges, and right now is the time for us to really dig in. And if that means locking ourselves in a room and saying we're not leaving until we find a solution, maybe we're at that point. I don't know, and I don't want to make it sound like doom and gloom. Like we're good at the ready, aim, and let's kick the can, and we've done that in our industry, which has led to this moment. And I feel like now is the time for us to really look in the mirror and say, what do we want our legacy to be? I don't want to be 10 years from now and say I could have done this. And at minimum, speak my mind and have an opinion. Whether people say I'm an idiot or not, that doesn't matter to me. I have a duty, a responsibility, and I have ownership in how I lead this department and institution and the impact we have in our community. And I want to put our best foot forward, and there's no guaranteed success, but at minimum, I believe conversation and having those crucial conversations could lead to a better outcome.
You at Boise State, all the rest of the teams that are, in the new Pac-12, this is a very interesting spot for you guys as well, because not only you're not going into, you're going to a conference that has a name, but it's essentially new. You are brand new altogether. So you'd like to be able to feel like you as a group in 2026 can hit the ground running, but I would assume that's kind of hard right now, given everything that's hanging over it.
It's challenging. It's not impossible. We're going to play the hand that we've been dealt regardless. That's all. That has been our mentality from the very beginning. And I've been so fortunate to inherit a foundation here of success, specifically on the football side. And so we're always going to play the hand to the best of our ability. Like I said, it's not doom and gloom. I see opportunity in everything. And sometimes that means in failure. And, when you look at the day and age we're in and how athletics is changing in general, I see opportunity. And that's really allowed us to maybe approach it differently. I'm willing to take more risks than maybe others because I see what I'm navigating and I see what our budget is and I see what the level of competitiveness our fan base, Bronco Nation, believes we should operate in. And so we're not one to make excuses. We're going to find a way. We're going to create a path. We're always hitting the ground running. And I'm really proud of our team for believing in me and my leadership and really committing to the process. It's always process over outcome. And, we're going to play that hand. We're going to continue to play that hand and we'll see where it goes.
So Jeremiah, and just talking to various athletic directors and just reading various stories, I know I've seen multiple times that there's a concern from those in charge about having to go to the well of the donors, more than ever and go more and more and more because there's more and more money that's needed. But how often in your conversations with fellow colleagues, do you guys talk about, or is there a level of concern about just fandom in general with all of the changes and all of the things that are going on? Is there at all a talking point amongst leaders about we're driving people away from the sport in the future if we don't get these things in order? Or is that just not even really a thought at this point in time?
It's a thought for me, the way I see it, and maybe this is, the fan inside of me. I got into college athletics because I was a fan, and now it's more business for me, and because it's my job. But yeah, that is a concern. I think we're at that moment in time, and like I said, I don't want to be overly dramatic, but are we at this crossroads that the decisions we make right now could very well impact our alums, our communities we serve, the fans we have, the student athletes, and the experience. And so, yeah, it's been a topic in behind closed doors, with various ADs and in some of the meetings I go to, but I'm not sure it's at the level now where that fear is maybe apparent to all. Now I've been following social media and some of the things that have been said over the last week, and there's been a lot out there. I think fans are starting to speak up, and this is an industry that we love and care about, and we have an impact. Yes, I know we're professionalizing, but the impact we have, I live it every day, guys, with 350 plus student athletes and people like Ashton Genty and Tyson Degenhart, and there's so many others. And those are ones that, the nation knows about. We are having an impact, and I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose the impact we're having on our fan base, and the community and what it means. And that's something that, keeps me up at night. I don't know what else I would do, and so I don't want our industry to lose sight of our purpose. And, but I get it. There's inherent risk in that. And my job now is, hopefully to speak the truth and find solutions and be a part of the process. And, and I do believe there's a path forward.
I can imagine that there's no way you could afford for this not to work out. The amount of money that's being put into Boise State athletics, the infrastructure, all of it, everything. You can't fail, right? Because, but it's not just group of 5 schools or whatever. There are schools in some of the Power 4 conferences that have put an enormous amount of money. Jamie Pollard was saying this the other day. Hey, this is not sustainable. You guys cannot fail, can you? You can absolutely not let this thing slip away.
For sure, but some of that I don't control. What my message to Bronco Nation and to our team here is we're going to put our best foot forward. And you've heard a lot of the comments of the NCAA and what is its purpose, and and I don't remember who said it. I'm guessing it was I know the SEC's having meetings right now, but someone had a quote that there's been conversation of, and I don't want to be misquoted and put them in a bad position, but something about the NCAA and their overall involvement. We know that is a potential outcome. Does football break away, and what is the NCAA's purpose in all this? And we know where the issues are. We know where the opportunities are in a more positive way. And we are investing, but the way I'm looking at it is we got 5 years, we got to the end of this decade to put our best foot forward, and whatever hope that provides and maybe percentage of growth that maybe better positions us. It's in our best interest to do everything we possibly can, because the changes are real, and it is impacting staff and departments around the country. And like I said, I do see a tremendous amount of value in what we provide, to our industry, to our communities. And I don't want to be a part of losing that. I want us to come out of this decade, with a much brighter future ahead. And it's hard to see what that future looks like with, a lot of the conversations that are going on very publicly.
Jeremiah, we appreciate your time. When Mac took the job as the College Football Playoff Committee spokesperson, did you call him up and say, what in the hell are you doing? That person is never very popular.
It's not, but I congratulated him. That's a point of pride, I think, for ADs, and I love Mac. I'm proud of him. And so I felt a little bit of pride that, he's family. So, I was happy for him, and it is a lot, but Mac never does anything easy, guys. And that's, and I've lived that, and I have a lot of him and me in terms of how I approach things. And so, that's probably where it came from. If someone tells him he shouldn't do something, he finds a way to do it. And, so I know my opinion would not have mattered to him. I would have only driven him further into it.
We just all need to get together as friends of Mac and make him a list of things buzzwords. Don't say these things.
Yeah.
Don't say these things. That way, nobody you're going to walk through an airport and somebody's going to be like, what does game control even mean?
Yeah.
Right. There's so much, guys, that goes in, this in your space. Until you're in front of a microphone, like I'm going to walk away from this going, man, I probably shouldn't have said that because I'm going to get hammered, publicly. When you're up in front of people like that and you're having to speak on behalf of, in his case, the CFP, and it's not like the NFL where everyone's really clear, like no one's complaining that the Dallas Cowboys didn't make it, like everyone knew the rules. We're still in an industry that's it's subjective in many ways, and and that's hard. You're never going to make everyone happy, but I know Mac well enough that he's always going to do what's right, and I know he'll do a great job leading that space and representing them at a high level.
Don't ever stop being. Don't ever be afraid to say what you feel, because that was great what you put out there on Friday or Thursday, whenever it was. But keep fighting the fight, Jeremiah. We do appreciate it. I know we just got 30 minutes from you, and you have a lot on your plate, so we do appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. I'm grateful for you, and I miss you. And please tell everyone hello, and sick 'em and go Broncos.
Yeah, there you go. Jeremiah Dickey, Director of Athletics at Boise State University, with us on 365 Sports. Somebody asked earlier about the quote. The quote that he put out last week was, "Hey, don't be afraid to call this what it is, the Boise State rule." And just changing it because of who we were or who we are or who we got, how we got in. Don't be afraid. It's a legacy. It's who we want to be. We're not going to stop fighting who we are, but or what we are. But Jeremiah Dickey from Boise State with us on 365 Sports. All right, when we come back, a couple of nuggets to get to at 425. Mitch Light, remember? We had him on a couple of weeks ago from The Athletic on the college baseball regionals that start later on in the week. We'll discuss that with him. Also, Pat Smith from the SEC perspective from Three-Man Front. He'll join us from WJOX in Birmingham. And later on, former LSU and longtime NFL quarterback and now talk show host Matt Flynn. He'll join us today. All of that and more. And this is 365 Sports. The Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium, I-35 in Waco, where they can host events that you are putting on. It could be something that's personal, like perhaps a rehearsal dinner or a wedding. It could be a banquet where you're honoring people like we do once a year in May. And my goodness, the staff was amazing. The food was great. The setup was incredible. And the views and what we had at our disposal, thank goodness for what we had, because it was awesome and all the great feedback. I had one of the academic all-stars send me a text. I don't normally like banquets. I'm not a big fan of them, but I enjoyed the one tonight. And she's been honored before. But that made me feel great about what we set up for those 20 amazing student athletes. Stunning views, great food, unbelievable amenities. The Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium off I-35 in Waco.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm, welcome home.
pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions, IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Mitch Light on college baseball and the regional setup starting on Friday around the country. So Bill Connolly from ESPN does a lot of the data, graphics, analytics, etc. I saw a post he put up. He goes, for the first time in 5 years, I put up my S&P rankings, not behind a fire, or what do you call it, a paywall. And then he had that picture of one guy with a big sword about to take on an army in a movie that I can't remember because I can't remember many of the movies.
I bet it's probably Jon Snow from the TV show Game of Thrones.
All right, that probably is it. So here are his ratings. No, this is post-spring returning production of including offense, including defense, including even smashed in, and that was, I think, the term that he used, the incoming freshmen who might have an impact, including the transfer portal and all of that. Here are the top 6, 9, and through the rest of after 6, it's the rest, or some of the Big 12, but not everybody. Clemson, 1. Arizona State, we hear a lot about Scadaboo is gone, at 2. Vanderbilt, 3. Illinois, Brett Bielema and what he has at 4. Kennesaw State, that was mentioned, a team that was not good at all last year, at 5. And then Texas Tech at 6. And then you see some of the other Big 12 teams within the top 20. K-State right after Baylor, then Arizona, Utah, and Houston and Willie Fritz at number 20.
73% returning production from a team is awesome. I mean, that's great to have. And then when you see what they did in the transfer portal, that's why, like, the time is now for Texas Tech to make a move. I mean, that is, if they don't this year, man, it's going to be a real punch in the nards to the fans, I think, because I think there's a lot of excitement.
If they don't win a Big 12 title, you think,
or at least
play for one?
If they're on the championship game, then everybody deserves to point and laugh. I mean, as far as all the trash talking this offseason and the expectations, and mean-spirited for those who got into it with people who are being, mean-spirited about it, or, if people you don't like and you've been disagreeing with about Texas Tech's assent or lack thereof. But I think everybody else would just kind of like point and laugh, like, y'all did all that talking and he didn't even make the championship game. Like that's the bare minimum that you could do. So yeah, I think that should be the bare minimum expectation is you make the championship game. And if you don't, then it should be because, Baron Morton got hurt again, or, something just happened that was, not something that you can necessarily predict or account for. But yeah, I mean, based on just the way they've talked themselves, up this offseason, I think they're leaning into it. So I think if they're putting that as the expectation and every team says it, but they're really going all in, then that should be everybody's expectation for Texas Tech.
By the way, Wet Blanket just reminded us, I remember last year this list, Oklahoma State was number 2 in production.
I don't know what that was exactly what I was going to go to, Wet Blanket. I don't know how this actually correlates over time, but I don't know that this is always a great thing or necessarily really predictive because, last year Oklahoma State had a bunch of their team coming back, and they were the worst team in the entire league. The entire league, they were the worst team. They didn't win a Big 12 game with like 90% returning production back. Texas Tech, 76% on defense. Is that good? Or is
okay.
What I mean?
Let me explain it to you because he said while returning production doesn't correlate with pure quality, it correlates well with improvement and regression, particularly at the extremes.
Yeah, so, I mean, the defense wasn't any good, although there are spots that return that you feel like, and then Shieldwood, obviously, and the guys you added and everything else. So, But yeah, I mean, just going simply off of the percentages, they got 76 back. They ought to be good. It's like, if the other stuff they brought in to make up the 24% is really good and the 76 that's coming back is improved, then that could be really good. But that's, I just don't look at this like it's the end-all be-all to Wet Blanket's point. So, I mean, that's something for Tech, for Baylor, for K-State, for everybody on this list. When you do look at it and you look at Clemson, for example, and all the dudes they've got coming back, starting with the Cade Club, then you feel great about having a lot of that team back, and you should have high expectations. If you were pretty good last year, that you should be just as good, if not a little bit better this year. Or if you're, somebody who was sort of in the middle, then you should be a shade above that, especially if you're a Texas Tech who's made a bunch of big splashes. I look at Arizona State, and I can understand why everybody's lining up to recrown them again. But, dude, 79%, and I get, like, Sam Levitt and Tyson, like, that's great. Dude, Cam Scatterbo was a massive part of that team. So, like, you could have 98% coming back, and he's the 2% that's not, and that 2% could derail that thing. I mean, to the point where it's not quite what it was. I mean, where are they in that Big 12 title game without him? It's not even a close game.
It's not about,
and at times it almost broke away with him.
It's not about numbers specifically, too, with Cam Scatterbo. Like, there are guys who in those moments, look across and go, I'm getting this first down. I'm going to do this. He's a special type football player where.
Yeah, you can't put production numbers or quality into heart and soul or leadership and things like that. These are mainly
games in the Big 12 that are mostly one-score games.
Yeah.
And that first down you needed to get at a key spot. Those kind of things don't necessarily show up in stuff like this. So Cam Scatterbo is a huge like question mark about how do you replace not just the yards and touchdowns and whatever. Those kind of things will come, but do they come in the same spots?
Well, they replaced him, they think, with the Army running back, at least part of it. And here's part of what Connolly also said. Incoming transfers is mashed into both the numerator and denominator of the returning production formula. So if you lose your starting quarterback but bring in somebody else's starting quarterback in the portal, your returning yards is probably around 50% what it was a year ago. The production of transfers from schools below FBS level get half credit.
Yeah, I mean, that's good that he goes into explanations on a lot of those things, and Bill does a great job, and he puts out really interesting stuff like this. So you can look at it. It's the eye of the beholder. So I looked at it last year, and I looked at it a lot in making my predictions, and I'm not doing that again this year. I mean, the Oklahoma State thing alone, they were number one in this category, and they finished number 16 out of 16 in the league. And that wasn't like, they had 85% and they had two massive players leave. So that's why. No, Ollie Gordon was back. and the quarterback was back, and the receivers were all back, and the defensive players back. Now they got hurt on defense. They got hurt badly. A couple NFL draft picks got hurt like
Kyle
pretty
Oliver
much
and Nick
immediately.
Martin.
Yeah, so you can't account for that. So they would have been better, to be fair. But, yeah, just saying that this isn't an exact science. Bill doesn't claim that it is, but it is interesting to look at. And there is something, too, if you're a good team or a team that's geared up this offseason and you were pretty good last year and you're bringing back a bunch of key pieces, I can see why Arizona State feels great about next year, even with Scadaboo leaving. I can see why Texas Tech feels great about next year. Baylor, same thing, and so on and so forth. So, yeah.
One of the things that's of interest, but the Clemson at the top, I never thought they were going to beat Texas in that playoff game in Austin. But, my God, that turned out to be a pretty entertaining game. There were there's a couple of drives, especially maybe third quarter or whatever, where it got a little bit interesting, but they just couldn't stop Texas. Texas at times struggled stopping them. But that team was one that went into Austin and put on a pretty good show for the most part.
I actually think the bigger thing about Clemson is not who they're returning; it's that they're actually like bringing people in for the first time to hit with a quarterback like Cade Klubnik, who looks like he's finally come into his own. And they're in a system with Garrett Riley on offense that's really good. And not only that, they went and hired Tom Allen from Penn State as the defensive coordinator. So that's a big deal for them. That's a step up at that spot. So I think that's kind of the bigger thing with Clemson. Now, they do – I think the biggest thing is return a lot of offensive linemen, which was not the case a couple years ago when they were trying to rebuild this thing back up. They do look a little bit like, when you look at them on paper, they do kind of look like scary Clemson again, as opposed to this, which was still good. They weren't scary anymore. They were just good. They were efficient, but they kind of might be scary Clemson
They
anymore.
brought in on their depth chart, they have a wide receiver who's a transfer portal. They have defensive end and also a linebacker. So they didn't bring, but they at least started to look at that idea rather than none at all, who could try to give them a little oomph if they possibly can.
So Kennesaw State is the worst program in the country.
Yeah.
And they're bringing back 74%. I know they got some I think they play Texas Tech actually, and they maybe play somebody else as well. But are you bringing back a lot from a bad team? Does that mean you turn good? Or, so there's those particulars here. But I do think if you drill down, like Clemson bringing back a lot of really good, Arizona State's bringing back a lot of really good, Vanderbilt has plenty of reasons to be optimistic, more optimistic than ever, so on and so forth. Tech, we've touched on. You hope that what you have gets better, and then what you brought in is better than what you had, and so that combination puts you over the top, and that's the plan. And then Baylor, starting with Robertson and a lot of offensive pieces, you feel great about what they can do there. But they're, even with 63% back, that was not a good defense. So the defense has got to be dramatically better. Just because you're returning a lot of those guys doesn't mean you're returning a good defense. You're returning what was pretty much an average defense last year, would you say? Baylor?
Oh, yeah.
Average?
Yeah,
they can bring all those guys back, but those guys have to be better. Otherwise, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I remember back many years ago, just, would do a feature on a high school program during August workouts. They had 7 returning starters back on offense and 10 on defense. And I remember one time a coach told me, it's great to have them back. They're a year older, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be any better. You never know exactly how that's going to work out. Now, a quick note, and then we get into Mitch Light in the next segment. How many teams, or which team in the SEC, according to this from Bill Connolly, putting all of this together, which team, based on all of this in the Big 12, has a better chance of going 11-1 or better? Which team would be ranked at the highest level based on his S&P?
Tech?
Nope.
Arizona State?
No. It would be Kansas State. And it wouldn't be very high, 17%, based on who they're going to play, et cetera. It would be K-State, then BYU, along with Tech, and then Arizona State. Those 4 teams, and I mean minimal percentages, like Notre Dame is a 52% based on strength of schedule and also returning production. 52% they'll be 11-1 or better. Now, again, it's on strength of schedule based on what people who people think they're going to be.
Well, and 52% is not a really great percentage. So it's
not 11-1. Yeah, I wouldn't expect
really
it to be very good.
Expecting a lot of 11-1 teams in the Big 12 is what that says to me. And I'm definitely not as mathematically gifted as Bill Connolly is.
I would say that no one's going to go 11-1. But
I mean, based on last year, if everybody's coming back, like I think everybody's taking a couple losses, and I think that only makes sense. I would not have a lot of high percentage confidence that there's anybody in the Big 12 this year that's going to be an 11-1 type of team.
All right.
So, yeah.
Which team highest odds in the SEC of going 10-2 or better? Strength of schedule, and also, remember, returning production, etc.
Texas?
They're 2.
Okay.
61%, though. Very high percentage. Georgia tied with that at 61%. Alabama with 65%. So even though last year they took their step back under year one with DeBoer, this is not something where it's an opinion, it's putting all the data into a big crunch meter, and then it comes out with that. Alabama slightly ahead of Texas and Georgia to win 10 games or go 10-2 or better.
Yeah, I mean, not knowing everybody's schedule off the top of my head, I'll take his word for that on Alabama. I mean, there's reason to believe maybe they get better at quarterback, or just they look different as a team as a result of the change at quarterback, and Ty Simpson versus Jalen Milroe and those skill sets. But yeah, I don't know the top of I mean, I know Texas last year had what was considered a pretty easy schedule, especially compared to their counterpart Oklahoma.
Yep.
And that's the same schedule this year.
And
You're
Oklahoma is the
just
number one schedule. Yep.
See, there you go. And Texas has what?
12th. Alabama, Texas, Georgia
1
are
versus
11,
12,
12, and
dude.
13. Yeah. No.
I mean, come on.
Yep.
Yeah.
LSU, by the way, Garrett, 9th strength of schedule.
Makes sense.
I know you can't
Florida
predict that.
second.
I know you can't predict that, but that's wildly different, dude. Like, that's wildly different. 1 versus 12 when you both came at the same time and got your schedules at the same time. Oklahoma deservedly feels like they got kind of the rougher end of that for
That's
sure.
That's true, but if Oklahoma was anywhere near who they had been before, that would be something. They still might get nicked a couple of times, but they would just take that thing head on. And unfortunately for them, they're down a notch.
Well, and I think this was a conversation before we even knew Oklahoma was average last year, though. This was conversation when the schedules dropped is like, wow, that Texas schedule doesn't look nearly as difficult as OU's does. And sure enough, OU then turns out to be mediocre at best at times. And yeah, that schedule really walloped them, still made a bowl game and all that. But, and then Texas makes the playoff. Now, I think Texas could have flipped schedules and they probably still go 10-2 or something like that last year.
Yep,
so, I mean, I'm not knocking that. It's just funny how differently those schedules are viewed 2 years into this now.
If they had like adjoining hotel rooms, like when they went in, Texas has been like, did you see the gift basket? What does yours have in it? Like, we have some raisinets.
We have
roaches.
Yeah, we have raisinets.
We have cheeses, and they have gold bullion or whatever. Yeah.
Like, we have champagne in here. What'd you get? Well, there's the provided bottles of water.
Yeah.
So I hope we get 2 more tomorrow.
The team out of everybody that has the highest percentage of going 10-2 or better is actually Penn State, based on the strength of schedules, 29. But they have an 82%, even ahead of Ohio State at 77% of going 10-2 or better. That's the highest among anybody mentioned, Power 4 or Group of 5 or anybody at that level. So, all right.
Well, they went and got some wide receivers, so now everybody thinks that they might do something.
They play Penn State, Ohio State. They don't play Michigan, so there's 2 games there that if you feel like they don't win those, and they could very well win one or both of those. But outside of that, yeah, it'll just be that coin flip of how good the rest of the teams in the Big Ten that they play are, like Nebraska or
Illinois,
somebody like Iowa,
All right, when we come back, Mitch Lighty joined us a couple of weeks ago when the regular season or conference schedule was winding down in college baseball. They will be throwing the first pitch around the country through the weekend, including starting on Friday afternoon. His thoughts about the top 16 seeds, his thoughts about maybe a team or two that should be hosting this weekend that's not. Paul mentioned Georgia Tech. That and more. This is 365 Sports. Are you ready? Is your body ready? Are you going to be fit enough to feel comfortable when you go to the beach, swimming pool, family reunions? You're in shape. Summertime is basically here. Are you comfortable the way you look? It's not too late. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier, elite, life-changing, and body-changing experience where you can gain confidence. Do you realize how stressful it is to walk into your closet every morning and you're like, are these going to fit today? If you take care of yourself, if you have, yes, a good diet, but also a pretty darn good, strict fitness schedule, are there fat pants? Are there the ones where you're feeling good? What do you wear? Are the shirts too tight? Are you going up another level? Don't do that. It's not too late. Go to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, offering over 40 group exercise classes every week, boot camp, indoor cycling, even classes on the weekend, free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, treadmills, elliptical that can help you get yourself ready to look good for the summer. It's not too late. There are personal trainers there to help you, encourage you, motivate you, so you can feel comfortable whenever that vacation is about to start. But right now, let's focus on you and vacation in this summer at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Alan Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Alan Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560 or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and Equal Housing Lender.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Mitch Light, senior editor, college sports at theathletic.com. He joins us on 365 Sports. And Mitch, last time we talked with you 2-3 weeks ago, of course, they were still winding down conference play. That's all over. Tournament play. Now we get to what happens. Somebody's going to win a national title. And thanks for your time. Who, in your opinion, is a team that should be hosting a regional that you think was the one probably hit the most?
I'll give the boring answer and say none. I think the committee got it right. The two maybe ones that a lot of people are talking about would be Georgia Tech and TCU. You know, Georgia Tech in this era of super conferences, bigger, you know, ACC's got, 16, 17 teams. They won the league outright, but percentage points over Florida State. But they didn't play Florida State. They didn't play North Carolina. They didn't play NC State. They did play Clemson. So of the 4 teams behind them, they only played 3. So I think just granting a host site to the ACC champ, the champ of the second best league, you can't just do that automatically because the schedules aren't the same. And TCU had a case. They went 19-11 in the Big 12, the third best conference, 18 RPI, which is obviously on the fringe there. But their problem was they lost 2 of 3 games at home in the pre-conference schedule to Southern Miss, another team they were battling with. So it's not just head-to-head, but that has to factor in. So my guess is the committee was looking at TCU as one of the host sites and SMU as one of the host sites. Well, Southern Miss, a mid-major team, goes on the road and beats TCU 2 out of 3. They stated their case right there.
Which top 8 seed is white-knuckling their regional the most?
Good question. I think UCLA possibly. I think Irvine's a really good team that was talk about teams that they didn't really have a case to host, but in every projection, probably until the last 3 weeks, Irvine was one of those teams that was going to host. They stumbled down the stretch. They lost 2 of their last 3 home conference series, and then they lost twice to Cal Poly. In the Big West tournament. And I think Arizona State was a bubble team, but a very, very good offensive team. In Big 12 action, they were like first in the league in average, second in home runs, second in fewest strikeouts, all these stats that you look at in conference play. So I think they're a dangerous team. And, Fresno State, if this were 15 years ago and Aaron Judge was playing for them, maybe they'd be a good 4 seed. But I don't think that's going to be the case this year.
What do you think about the way Texas is looking heading into the postseason right now? I mean, they were number 1, what seemed like for forever, and then, had a couple stumbles down the stretch, still in a very good position. But just what do you make of the way they're playing at the moment?
Yeah, they did stumble down the stretch. They lost that home series to Florida. No shame in that. Florida was playing really well. And then they took 2 of 3 from Oklahoma. And then the one and done in the SEC tournament, not a big deal. I mean, they were throwing a midweek guy or not even a midweek guy. They were throwing a reliever who hadn't thrown much, and Tennessee really needed to win that game to state its case to be a host. So I wouldn't put too much stock. Clearly, the team's not playing like they were earlier in the year, but I think all of us thought they were playing maybe a little bit over their head. Like, remember when they were 19-2, or like, what's going on here? This is a talented team, but no one goes 19-2 in the SEC. So they probably lost the right to be the number 1 overall seed in the last few weeks of the season. That really doesn't matter. But I agree. UTSA is a good team. Kansas State's a good team, but I like Texas as seed.
Mitch, the Big 12 ended up with 3 of the last 4 in. Ended up with a nice chunk of teams, I think the most they've ever had. And it's neat to see Arizona win the tournament. Obviously, Arizona State with a history that has not been of recently, but a great history. Your overall thoughts about West Virginia fell down the stretch, but the teams that are in the tournament and which ones have the best opportunity to win?
Yeah, it's an interesting league because, like we said, there's no hosts from the Big 12, but they got 3 of the last 4 teams in. Just a lot of really good teams that have some warts, and they were inconsistent. Kansas was a really fun team this year. They had some huge series wins. They swept Kansas State at home. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. They had a bad series loss at home where they got swept, and they go to West Virginia when West Virginia's, in prime position to maybe host. They sweep West Virginia to end the season. So West Virginia piled up a lot of wins against a weak schedule. Interested to see how they do there. I like Arizona a lot. If I'm picking one team from the Big 12 most likely to get to Omaha, it's probably Arizona. Very balanced. We saw what they did in the Big 12 tournament, but I think it's going to be a fun league to monitor in the next few weeks.
The Coastal Carolina regional looks like it's going to be a pretty tough one and a fun one with East Carolina in there, with the Gators in there, and Coastal's been great all year long. As I look at it, it feels to me like the toughest one. But, I mean, again, these things get wild. But I do like that one particularly.
Yeah, and Coastal Carolina is maybe a team that had the biggest beef with its seed. That a lot of people thought they could be a top 8 seed. They had a great year in the Sun Belt. They had some really good non-conference wins that beat Clemson, that beat Wake Forest. So they have to, quote-unquote, settle for 13. And who do they get as a number 2? Florida. And it's become a cliche. Like, same thing happened last year. Florida got hot, was a 3 seed in Stillwater, made the Final Four of the College World Series. This year they go from 1-9 and 1-11 in the SEC to 15-15. They take that series at Texas. They are not as good as last year's team. They don't have a Jack Caglione like they did last year. They have a lot of injuries, but they're playing very well. And East Carolina is interesting. It's the they were a forgotten team. They're losing record in conference play for only the third or fourth time this century. It looked like their tournament streak was going to be snapped. What do? They go out and win the AAC. So this is like a cliche, but it's a program that knows how to win. Cliff Godwin's team is usually built to win in the postseason. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. And Fairfield as a number 4 seed, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I looked this up. They have an unbelievable record over the last 5 years. So it's a program that knows how to win. But real quick, to talk about the most difficult region, I think it's going to be Oxford with Ole Miss. Georgia Tech talked about them as an angry 2 seed. Western Kentucky's the only team in the country that is in the top 15 in batting average and ERA, and Murray State won a ton of games as well. So I think that one's going to be really difficult for Ole Miss.
How has DBU, good old Dallas Baptist, been able to be just such a mainstay, perennial contender, and just great baseball program?
We wrote about DBU last year because I was just amazed. I think the streak's up to 12 years. And, Coach Hefner's just got a really solid program there. And I'm only half kidding when I say this, but the best thing that Dallas Baptist has going for it is that SMU doesn't have baseball. Because the way SMU likes to pour money into athletics now, I wonder what would happen there. But, yeah, I think that's one of the things that makes college baseball unique and fun. You've got a program like Dallas Baptist that most college sports fans don't know anything about because they don't play football or basketball at the Division I level. You got a Coastal Carolina that won the national championship. You got Southern Miss that's won a ton of games in host. But, yeah, just – again, more cliches, a culture, a pitching culture. They just continually have. They've switched conferences. They've been independent. All they do is continue to win there.
All right, Greg brought up Texas. They're going to have Houston Christian, K-State, and UTSA. That seems like they should just roll right through that, but it doesn't always work out that way, does it, Mitch?
Not at all, and that's what makes postseason baseball great. You just don't know, are there 4 seeds out there with an ace? Sometimes you can have a 4 seed with a bad record, but they've got a pitcher who's just really, really good and it's a tough matchup. Does the 2, I'm generalizing here, but does a coach of a 2 or 3 seed have his ace? Does he wait until the Saturday game and roll the dice and if they can get that win Friday? So there's just so many matchups involved. You could be facing a left-hander if you've got a lefty heavy lineup. So again, Texas looks like the favorite on paper. But ask any coach, they are nervous. Those 1-4 games make coaches really nervous because that number 4 seed's got nothing to lose, and there's all the pressure on that 1 seed.
And they have, as good as they are, and they did have injuries at the end to some key players, but are they at times a little bit suspect with their offense that they're not scoring enough runs?
Yes. They won, obviously they won the regular season title despite being 246. And slugging 432 in league games. That 246 was 13th, and they slugged 432. Now, they can pitch. They led the SEC in ERA and batting average against. But if you struggle offensively, and there's one thing, it's not necessarily unique to college baseball. It's in all sports. But I've seen it happen so many times. That higher seed, it's the 3rd or 4th inning. They got 1 hit. They're down 1 or 2-0. There's that nervous energy in the stadium. And if you're a team that struggles offensively, the team can start to press. So, yeah, I think – any coach that has questions about his offense is probably a little nervous this time of year.
Last year, Tennessee won it. They've got that fiery team. It seems like even if you transfer into that school and get on that roster, you turn into kind of a semi-turd the way that they play. They got an edge to them, and it's of course their coach is like that too. They were hit and miss. We mentioned that with you last time. They played well in the tournament. Is that a team that can get hot, you think, and get deep in and get to Omaha?
No doubt. The boys in Vegas, you look at the odds, I think they still have the 2nd or 3rd best odds to win it all. They have a talented lineup, not nearly as talented as last year. Their pitching is a little overrated, in my opinion. Like Liam Doyle is probably the best pitcher in the country, and Marcus Phillips, their number 2 guy, is really good. They can't seem to settle on a 3rd starter, and some of their top relievers have not been pitching very well. They don't hold runners on base very well at all, so it depends on their matchup. And Cincinnati, who's the number 3 seed in this regional, loves to steal a ton of bases. So if Cincinnati beats Wake Forest, watch for that storyline against Tennessee running the bases. But Tennessee, we keep saying, they've got the talent, but they lost 4 or 5 home series, and their last time out, they lost 10-0 to Vanderbilt in the SEC tournament. At some point, they need to flip the switch on. Again, the DNA, the program, they've been successful, but they got to start playing better.
They don't have Christian Moore this year, and
Blake Burke. They've got, they had generational talents last year.
Yeah, they had 2 guys that you could not get out. could not get out. And so that's the biggest difference there.
You need to bring up the check swing call against Florida State.
We don't, Mitch. We don't.
Okay. I was just asking.
I was in Palm Springs on my anniversary trip, and we were going to dinner, and it happened right as we were walking into the restaurant. And then we're at the hibachi, and you've never seen an angrier person watching rice get cooked in your life than me. And the guy's like, everything okay? I'm like, I'll be fine. Give me a second.
You had a really bad 24, didn't you?
No, it was awful.
He went around, by the way. He went around.
Yeah. So
with the format the way it is, and it's 4 teams, you think, okay, there's not – but if you do get behind the 8 ball, even if you're deep, can't that just wear your ass out and just like a grind to hopefully get into the championship game?
No doubt about it. And that's why that first game is so important. And the numbers say, the teams that go 2-0 and say in the winner's bracket, whatever the percentage is, 70-something percent. The teams that have the pitching depth are the ones that can survive. I mean, it's being master of the obvious there, but the staffs that can go on fumes, and Tennessee's one of those staffs that really has been struggling to find that third starter. So if you don't have a third starter, what are you doing with a 4th or 5th starter? So yeah, that's one thing about Texas, well positioned. They got a deep staff if they were to lose a game. But this weekend is all about surviving with your pitching. If you survive this week, then you go back to the 2 of 3 format in the super regionals, and that mimics more what you play in the regular season.
Mitch, this is not about the tournament, but what did you think about San Diego last week having their center fielder throw like 115 pitches to get through that ridiculous game?
Yeah, I'm not one of those guys that will sit here and criticize from the outside. Like if you've got an ace like Stanford a couple years ago, I forgot the guy's name, Quinn something. He threw a ton of pitches in the regional. I thought that was kind of not a great situation. But, Boston College had a guy throw a ton of pitches in the ACC tournament, and some people were all over him. If you're not a prospect and your career is going to end this week or next week, and you want to do that, and you tell the coach, okay, that's fine. Like, I don't know this outfielder situation. I was following it because the situation. So I don't know. I doubt this guy's going to be a future major league pitcher. So I think it's a great story. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah. Hey, man, great stuff, Mitch. And we'll see what happens. I know you're busy and you got other things on your plate, but we'll see when we get to the World Series, maybe have you on that week before if you're available.
Sounds good. Look forward to it, guys.
Thank you. Mitch Light, theathletic.com, covers baseball. Here, a note. The teams that are in the College Baseball World Series, the most national titles, USC, but their last title was in 1998. Now, USC has a huge tradition, but they won a ton in the 60s and 70s, but 98 after 78, and then that's it. LSU's won 7. Garrett, a couple of years ago. They had, what was the year the guy hit the home run? Morris hit the home run to win the World Series, left-handed kid. But they've won most of theirs, well, all of them since 91. The last one was in 23. Texas has 6. The last one was in 05, the same year that Vince Young in football won that national title. Arizona State, Reggie Jackson, Rick Monday, and some of those. They've won 5. Along with Arizona, those two have combined to win 10, but ASU's last was in Barry Bonds in 1981, I'm not saying, and then Arizona won it back in 2012. Cal State Fullerton, Augie Garita was there, they won 4, and Miami, the Hurricanes, have also won 4.
Yeah, when was their last one?
In 01.
Yep.
When was
Florida State's last one?
I haven't had one. That one in 01, or maybe it was 2001 before. I don't know. They beat Florida State in one of them, and it was one of the worst days.
They won it in 82, 85, 99, and 01.
99. Yeah, 99 was that one.
Can I ask you a question?
It hurts.
You've had a lot of bad, painful things.
I don't know.
But you keep bringing them up.
So, no, I'm trying to figure out, am I in a Stephen King book where I hit a witch with my car and I didn't know
with a broom?
I don't know. It was like raining. I didn't know.
I don't know. I have a sudden urge to talk about the 2023 college football playoff all over again. For some reason.
So, what
just
did I do?
Throw him under the damn bus. By
the way, LSU, I can't imagine that there is a program that's done more in the last 30 years that had history, but not championship history really to speak of prior to 1990.
Yeah.
And they've reeled off like multiple football titles, and now Mulkey's won them a natty in the women's basketball.
7 baseball titles.
All the baseball titles are since 1990. How many of the football?
They won it a long time ago.
All 3 of them are since 90 or since 2000. Yeah.
They lost in 1970 to Nebraska in the Orange Bowl, and it's like 12-6 or something, some crazy score that was for a national title, but they didn't win it. They did not win it until, like you said, most recently.
So they've won 10 total football and baseball titles in the last 30 years.
And that's a pretty good run.
And not counting, like I said, women's basketball or anything else. But I don't know. I just was thinking about that. I've thought about that before with LSU and football. I just don't remember them being that big of a deal when I was growing up. And granted, I wasn't watching like SEC. It wasn't like that back then. It wasn't like the sport was entirely different. The coverage was entirely different. So there wasn't all of this like territorial discussion all the time. And college football was just college football. Like there was just bowl games. There wasn't all this other stuff. And so LSU just wasn't really on my radar at all. I know we're going to talk to a guy who very proud LSU helped him win one of those natties in Matt Flynn, but that's when they really got more on my radar, I guess, just because he went there and he was a year younger than me. And then obviously watched him do his thing, and then everything they've done since. They beat Oklahoma. That was, for that title in 2003. But, yeah, they've done a lot in a short amount of time when you really think about it.
They won it in 1958, legitimate national title. Billy Cannon was, of course, I think it might even – I don't know if he won the Heisman Trophy that year with Paul Dietzel as their head coach. But that was a big boy team that beat Clemson to win a national title in 1958.
Okay,
and then
so 3 since 2000.
Then they had the one in 1970, lost. And then here since 90s, you're right. They have been off on many things.
Billy Cannon was the one that they did that movie.
The Halloween run, too.
Yeah, but they very loosely based Dennis Quaid's character in Everybody's All-American on Billy Cannon.
Okay.
A movie with John Goodman.
Cannon's Halloween run. That's it. Yeah.
What happens first? Nebraska wins number 6, or LSU wins 2 more to get to 6?
Oh, there's no question. You got to lean on LSU with that. Yeah. I don't know if Nebraska will ever be in that conversation. I hope so, but
I'm starting to wonder if LSU doesn't get 3 more before Oklahoma gets their 8th, and then they end up tied with them. Honestly, the way things have gone. So we all have a pity party we can have.
I don't know when a good thing's ever going to happen to me again.
We got the most recent natty. So
when was the last good thing that happened to you?
Got married? I got married. Sports-wise.
Good answer.
Sports married. Sports-wise, no. Sports-wise, it's been a while.
It's been a long stretch.
2018 was the Red Sox. That was a good. One.
When we come back, Pat Smith, 3-man front. He'll join. 3-man front will join us on many things. We've heard a lot about this week with the SEC spring meetings and college football from his perspective in the heart of SEC and college football in the South in Birmingham. He's next. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Ted Teague, the general manager, and also the CEO. And as you hit the summer, what are you going to use for? It's a normal trend that you're going to go on a long trip and change out the car you have now, go get a brand new one, take advantage of a lot of the discounts and also incentives that you have right now at Alan Samuels, including the 2025 Dodge Charger RT Stage 1. Brute muscle meets asphalt. Stage 1 performance, tuning, aggressive style, and unmistakable that growl of Dodge. 2025 Charger RT isn't just a car, it's a statement, and it's available, including $10,000 right now off, plus you can get employee pricing, or it's 1.9% for 72 months. And then you want a dude, an Alpha 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee Jeep Wagoneer L. This is the top of the line. Bigger, bolder, and now $15,000 off. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Experience 3 rows. Perfect for any kind of long or over throughout the summer vacation trip or just every day. First class comfort, advanced technology, and the legendary Jeep capability. Your lifestyle inside one of these is fantastic. 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee or Grand Wagoneer L. And right now you can get $15,000 off MSRP and employee pricing. Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved, learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Penny Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Penny Clinic Waco and reach out to the Penny Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pennycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Pat Smith joins us, 365 Sports, from the heart of the SEC, but also covering what's going on with the SEC meetings and much more. Again, with 3-man front, WJOX, the monster out of Birmingham, Alabama. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, David Smoak. Pat, thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time. So you're right there in the middle of all that, and obviously covered the SEC. You've seen maybe a little bit of the blowback and Sankey this or Sankey that. What, from your perspective, is Greg Sankey actually trying to say?
Well, one thing's for sure. First off, always great to be on with you guys. Greg Sankey pays very good attention to what's going on outside the Southeastern Conference. And don't think for a second that some of the blowback that has occurred from the Big 12 and the ACC has not resonated with him. The folks that I am in very close contact with behind closed doors down in Destin, they tell me that absolutely that this is something that has been a minor story behind closed doors. That's why today there was a lot of discussion about a 5+11 model as opposed to the 4-4-2-2-1 model that everyone has criticized. So not really sure that anything is going to come to fruition in regards to everybody being in agreement once they leave Destin in about another 24 to 48 hours. But it's a situation that Greg Sankey absolutely has heard the clarion call from others around college sports in regards to those automatic qualifiers.
Pat, couldn't this stand to benefit them even more so than the automatic 4 qualifiers, the potential 5+11 model? Because that would give them unlimited amounts of bids as opposed to just the demand for 4 right out of the gates.
it's very interesting because what's going on is you've got the coaches. See, this is one thing, and I'm not sure if this is the way it is in the Big 12 or other conferences. I can't speak for them, but I can tell you because I have covered this event in Destin for 25 years plus. And I'm just telling you, what happens is that the coaches come in. The coaches basically take the oxygen out of the room because these are the millionaires. These are the $10 million paychecks that these athletic departments have to write to these coaches. So they come in on Tuesday and Wednesday. They get on their soapboxes, okay? Then you have the athletic directors who then make recommendations to the presidents. Well, the coaches are out the door. They're on a plane. They're gone right now. This is when the real work starts. This is when the chancellors and the presidents get together because at the end of the day, they're the ones that make the ultimate decision of what's going on. So you had the coaches saying one thing on Tuesday. You had the athletic directors kind of disagreeing with their head coaches on what they were thinking because they're kind of comptrollers. They're looking at the bottom line. And then at the end of the week, it will be the presidents and the chancellors that will take the advisement of the coaches and the ADs to make the ultimate decision if they vote on anything. But yes, to answer your question with a long answer, absolutely the 5+11 model, based on history, would give the SEC probably more than those 4 automatic qualifiers that they would be given if they went with that model.
And it would give the Big 12 and ACC just a one guaranteed spot. So, like, man, for all of the complaining about the auto bids, like there was part of me all last week and even in the months previous, like 2 auto bids is kind of, I mean, like it could be a good thing. And so, I don't know. I just find this very interesting. It's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't from the outsider's perspective. SEC is obviously fine from your perspective, but it's just interesting how that could work against them when that's what everybody was pushing back against just a few days ago.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And when you look at this, there was that disconnect. And that was the most fascinating part to the early part of the week in the story down in Destin is how the coaches wanted one thing. But then you had the Trell Alberts at Texas A&M. You had Florida's Scott Strickland. They were both adamant that they wanted automatic qualifiers moving forward or they weren't going to vote on a 9-game conference schedule. Meanwhile, the Big Ten, they had a call today talking about the 5-11 model, and they would love to be in some type of schedule agreement with the SEC, but they said, hold the phone a second, guys. Unless you guys vote to go from 8 conference games to 9 conference games, we can't do that. Like, why would we add an SEC game to our already difficult 9-game conference schedule when you guys are going to stay at 8 and only add one other game? So we're still behind the 8 ball in regards to trying to, put up with what the SEC is trying to sell. So this is a very delicate situation. It's not going to be settled this week in Destin. The CFP executives are going to meet on June the 18th. I think the SEC is not going to have an idea yet what they want to do from an 8 or 9-game schedule in conference because they want to find out what the CFP wants to do before they decide that they're going to go ahead and jump in with both feet for the 8 or the 9-game schedule.
So, going back to what you said about the kind of outside the SEC, the public pressure, do you think that is why maybe he's backed off the automatic qualifiers even more, even in the theoretical kind of Greg Sankey, pick your poison way, either way it works out for the SEC?
This is my opinion on Greg Sankey. Greg Sankey is one of the most calculated, the most detailed individuals you will ever meet in your life. Basically, what I thought has happened is that the ADs, the coaches, and the presidents, they're not all on the same page yet. So he wants to move forward with a 9-game conference schedule. He has been absolutely 100% behind that for years, but he can't get everybody else on board. They keep kicking the can down the road because if you're a Kirby Smart in this league, Kirby's sitting there going, why would I want to play an additional 9th conference game when it's already difficult enough playing 8? And look at how 3 SEC schools last year got screwed out of the CFP based on their record. I'm talking about Alabama, South Carolina, and Ole Miss. And again, we can debate who they lost to. I agree with that. But from a coach's perspective, they don't want to sign up for an additional conference game. Why would they want to do that when they feel like they have a difficult task now trying to get to the CFP, playing in the dogfight that is of the conference? So I think Sankey thought he was going to be able to get to Destin and be able to give all this data to everyone. We would sing Kumbaya. People would sing We Are the World, and we're going to move forward with a 9-game conference schedule. But the problem is The coaches don't want that extra game, and the ADs only want the game if they're going to be guaranteed the kind of payday that's going to help benefit them once this House settlement happens.
Pat, it seems, would it be fair to say like that Big Ten SEC scheduling arrangement is coming down the pipeline, and that's one thing that we can almost bank on 100% is going to be happening sooner rather than later? And what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. But it's not going to happen unless ultimately the SEC pulls the trigger on that ninth conference game. I don't think the Big Ten is interested. And so that's where the SEC once again had an opportunity this week to get their ducks in a row. Now, again, I'm going to use this as a caveat. Once again, the presidents and the chancellors, they're the ones that make the policy in this conference. They take advisement from the coaches in football. They take advisement from the athletic directors. But at the end of the day, as we know now in the world of college athletics, it's about the bottom line. It's about how you're going to be able to fund all your sports and be able to pay that $20.5 million out every single year to the student athlete and be competitive. So at the end of the day, we'll see if they come to some type of at least a gentleman's agreement behind closed doors that moving forward, the conference will move to that 9 conference games, maybe in the summer before you get that announcement, because they want to see what the CFP does first. You want to play your cards before you find out what the ultimate group in the CFP decides.
All right, so if you go to 9 SEC games and then you add a non-conference game against the Big Ten, that's 10. Some of those schools have natural rivalries that are pretty good football games. Does that just leave one of those gimmies left on your schedule that you put back in November, or you know what I mean? Is that all that's left?
Well, it's very interesting because with all this talk about, okay, let's get into this agreement with the Big Ten, all of a sudden you have someone like a Shane Beamer at South Carolina going, hold on, time out. Let me see if I get this straight. You guys want me to play a 9-game SEC schedule, and by the way, I don't know if you look at this, but our out-of-conference end-of-the-year rival is Clemson.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you want me to play 9 SEC games, then potentially play Ohio State. Oh, and then, by the way, you got to play Clemson. And then I've only got one of these what we call in the Deep South as lettuce games or cupcake games, where you play the Tennessee Chattanoogas or the Mercers or somebody like that. Shane Beamer has got a legitimate gripe there because you got Georgia Tech playing Georgia. You got Florida playing Florida State. Meanwhile, in my state, you got Alabama versus Auburn, so you don't have to worry about that. That's a conference game. That's the biggest game of the year between the two schools. But you do have those outliers there in regards to playing a non-conference opponent as supposedly your big rival game. So what happens to those games? Those are the type questions that a lot of people above our pay grades guys are going to have to figure out.
So, Pat, there was the big to-do with the College Football Commission that was announced, and then Saban just pours water all over it pretty much immediately. But Cody Campbell did seem to at least like make people a little bit nervous almost in a way of like, wait, what is this? And who's this guy? And where's he coming from? And all of that. And now it's on pause, and who knows if they'll ever revisit it. But from your standpoint, what was kind of the reaction to the commission? And do you think that maybe having somebody like a Cody Campbell who's not under the banner, if you will, and has others' interest in mind, do you think that made people in the Southeast a little bit nervous that thing could potentially be something that does benefit others or could be something that works against them at all?
Well, I think having Cody on that commission, if it ever came to fruition, would have been huge. It would have been great because he's giving a different perspective. I think with the names that I heard bannered back and forth about that commission, it was a situation where I think that they were going to be able to get a really good snapshot at different angles of what's going on in college athletics. It was really bizarre. You had Trump coming to Tuscaloosa, Saban introduced him, and then all of a sudden everybody seems to be on the same page with this. And then very quickly, right after that, Saban started kind of dismissing himself and saying, we don't need a commission. I mean, we can figure this stuff out without having, all these meetings and doing this and doing that. He almost immediately started disconnecting himself from the whole process. Not really sure what happened behind closed doors. I'm not sure if it was Senator Ted Cruz, not sure if it was Senator Tommy Tuberville, because obviously those guys have been very outspoken in regards to guardrails and the things that need to happen in college sports. But yeah, it seemed like from the get-go, after Trump left Tuscaloosa, that Saban either wanted to be in Jupiter, Florida playing golf or being on his boat than having to deal with a commission and dealing with the politics involved.
Pat, do you think that, to that question, but do you think Cody Campbell scared them a little bit? Because he's different. He's not for just consolidating everything into a little thing.
No, I don't believe so, because I believe everyone understands the snapshot in regards to where he's coming from. And obviously Nick Saban would have a completely different perspective. I don't think there was a rub at all in regards to who was going to be potentially on the commission that changed Nick Saban's mind. I just think that Nick Saban started seeing this turning into a political football. And Nick Saban did a very good job in 17 years in the state of Alabama of trying not to be political. I know that his best friend was Joe Manchin, the longtime senator from the state of West Virginia, who was a Democrat who ended up being an independent towards the end of his run as a senator from West Virginia. But he stayed out of the politics in the state of Alabama, and that's probably always a good thing, unlike Tommy Tuberville, who's my senator from the state of Alabama, and now there's rumors that Bruce Pearl might take over for Tommy Tuberville, because Tuberville announced yesterday he's going to run for governor of the state of Alabama. So I don't know what it is with all these Auburn coaches wanting to get into politics, but that's what's going on in my neck of the woods.
Pat, of what you consider top line schools across the board, financially, tradition, whatever, what they have available to them with the new college athletics in the House settlement, whatever, is there somebody that is more fragile than others? When you think about, for example, the dudes, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Tennessee, LSU, Oklahoma, if they get kind of back together again with what they've done over the years, is there somebody that could be a little bit fragile?
That's a great question. I can tell you this, that obviously with Texas and Texas A&M in this league, I don't need to tell you guys about those two programs and the kind of money they have. But what I can tell you is that schools like Georgia, Alabama, and Auburn, they were very slow out of the gate. And if you think about it, the way Nick Saban ran his program, it was all about selling the NFL. It was about, look, you come here, we'll develop you. You will make millions of dollars once you're drafted in the NFL. Well, you guys know kids now just as well as anybody. They want it now. They don't want it 3 years from now. They want their money, which they're given that right to from an NIL perspective. They want it now as an 18, 19, 20-year-old, whatever the case may be. Kirby Smart was cut from that same cloth. So you had two coaches right there that was very slow getting to the whole NIL game. Auburn took them a year or two to try to get their NIL going in the right direction. And now LSU has spent a ton of money in this offseason. So I think in this new era of college sports, especially in the SEC and college football, you're finally getting the upper tier guys. I'm not saying they're ever going to get close to a Texas or Texas A&M, but at least the upper echelon of the SEC, they're finally getting those wheels churning in the right direction from an NIL. But the lower part of the league, that's the schools that you were kind of thinking they might have problems down the road about being able to at least compete on a level of the middle of the road in the SEC.
Pat, do you think, because there is this thought, and some on our show that are a part of the chat room or whatever, that when they decided to do that commission with Saban and then Cody Campbell from Tech, that maybe the SEC looked around and went, damn, this might not be good for us.
I never heard that. And again, I'm kind of insulated because obviously I'm in the SEC, literally miles away from the SEC headquarters. I never heard that. The thing that I kept hearing was the fact that Saban did not want potentially to be all involved in all the political machine that goes on with this. And on top of that, I think finally somebody, whistled in, whether it was the White House ear or some other congressional folks, that they wanted to give Senator Ted Cruz, Cory Booker, and the rest of those guys on Capitol Hill another opportunity to try to right this ship. And how much would that commission really have a say-so in regards to policy and what they do moving forward? So, again, from my perspective, I never heard that. Not saying that that's inaccurate or not true. It's just I never heard that from my neck of the woods.
Hey, man, thank you very much. Appreciate your perspective as always and the knowledge. I can't believe you didn't make it to Destin, though. It seemed like that'd be a good place to go for 3 or 4 days.
I will tell you, it's a fantastic place. I was there for about 20 straight years, kids playing ball, all that kind of fun stuff. And finally, it's just, you know what? I enjoy covering it from Birmingham and having my people down there and giving me what's going on. But it is a beautiful part of the world. If you ever get a chance, I strongly recommend to go. It's a beautiful part of the world.
It is. Well, the Big 12's in Orlando, but we're going to be up in Frisco for Big 12 Media Days and just around the corner. So we're not where they're having their meetings either. Pat, thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time as always. Co-host of Three Man Front, WJOX, the monster flagship out of Birmingham. We appreciate his time. All right, just around the corner, we're going to hear from Matt Flynn, who's now in talk radio. We've known Matt, well, since a long time ago, back when he was a Little League baseball and football player. He's now getting into talk radio with Jacob Hester. Did you know that, Garrett?
I did. He's taking over for T-Bob.
Yeah, and as far as on the station in Baton Rouge, and just his perspective from many places. One, now being a part of the media. Two, because of his experience in college and also in pro football, and many other comments about what's going on in college football from his perspective. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, I mentioned a minute ago. Now it's time for Ideal MRI. And my good friend, Dr. Rob Maxey. Boy, what a business. They wanted to save you money if you needed something to be looked at. Your neck or your back or your knee or shoulder or where it could be that perhaps you injured yourself, even if it's just something you play in softball during the week, or maybe you're an elite athlete and you need a doctor, your team needs a better look at what's going on. Maybe it's unfortunate, like a torn ACL or something in your knee, or it could be your rotator cuff. I had surgery on my rotator cuff back in 2015, and the reason I got that look at was Ideal MRI, $497. Eventually got that fixed. You will know whether your muscle is torn, your ligament is torn, or whatever is a problem because it hurts so much you can't function. Make sure your doctor, when they recommended MRI, they recommend it for you to go to Ideal MRI, $497 or less. The average is well over $1,000. Dr. Rob Maxey and his staff inside the Central Texas marketplace, worth the drive no matter where you are, Houston or Austin, San Antonio, and Dallas. IdealMRI.com.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports. Check out the 365 Sports family of channels on YouTube.
365 Sports around the corner. Matt Flynn will join us. Paul's top 5 on what, Paul?
Today it is on the 5 events that caused the SEC to lose their minds.
All right, and then we'll also hear from Andrew Valade, who's put up a couple of polls, and we'll have the results from those polls. And oh my Lord, Mr. Thunder himself, Emery Winter, decided to grace our presence this week in the studio.
Emery's been, on it. I think it's was it Julia Roberts who was in Eat, Pray, Love? I think it was that. I think that's what he's been doing. He's been going on a tour, loving the ladies. Just
is Finn Galley?
No, he's trying to. No. I think he's trying to meet one in every state.
Good God. Well, he's going to go
like that song "Traveling Man."
He's going to be like Jacques Peterson at the Rangers, 0 for 50 to start the year. Good luck with that, Emery. It's good to see you, sir. And I know the Thunder. With, of course, a nice, and Craig will get into all of that with the different series tomorrow with Off the Radar. But there's Emery Winter. It's good to see you again. So we had some basketball news yesterday. We didn't have too much time to get to it. So we'll kind of go back and not repeat because we didn't mention it. A lot of pretty good news. First of all, Kansas State and Jerome Tang picked up Haggerty, young man from Memphis, for $2 million, according to Adam Zagoria. $2 million base guaranteed NIL plus $500,000 in incentives for $2.5 million, which I guess that's kind of the going rate for a pretty damn good player. The kid out of Memphis goes to K-State.
Yeah, that's a great pickup, at least skill-wise. I don't think it's a coincidence that you go and get a PJ Haggerty and you spend a bunch of money on him, even when you said you'd maybe like to pull that back as Jerome Tang, and then you bring in an assistant coach like Matt Driscoll, who was really, really good with guys who are, I'll call them chuckers. He was the guy who refined Laced Areas done. PJ Haggerty's already really good, and I think that's a nice little thing going hand in hand. Driscoll coming there, and then PJ Haggerty. And then also them not having to give $4 to $5 million, which is what he asked for first, and he got half that. But hey, good on PJ Haggerty and his people. Like, swing for the fences, and you're still going to get a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much on the actual edition itself, but I did read an article that was entirely about how his father overplayed his hand and that they didn't hire an agent, and it was an entire write-up about the NIL deal and the money and what he could have gotten or what they could have done differently. And I found it bizarre to be reading through it and just so what about the basketball player? The entire article was about this NIL deal. And I just think that kind of sucks. I mean, you write about contracts in the pros, but at some point you get to the part about what he can contribute as a player and why he is, deserving of that money or should have asked for more or whatever. So that's what stood out to me was the article that I read involving that. But I don't know. I think a lot of people would be A-okay with a couple $1 million incentives. How all that works, I don't know exactly, but it sounds like he's got something that if he plays well as they expect him to, then everybody will be happy in the long run. So good for K-State.
It seemed like no matter how many other schools have done in men's basketball, put a lot of money into it, it looks like K-State had themselves a hell of an offseason. Might have had in the end, the best of the off seasons when it comes to the transfer portal.
Was that the case last year? Were we talking about them in NIL last year?
I think they made a late run last year too. Yeah. All right. So this is great news for a program as if they need, but you never have enough. But Milos Uzan is back. I like this kid. He's got he's a little bit, at times, he was a little bit loosey-goosey with the ball and maybe got out of the system, but Kelvin Sampson created a pretty good player from him. He tested the draft. He's withdrawing from the draft. And as if Houston needs more, well, they have it. And, of course, last year so close to the national title, but just fell short.
Yeah, and this goes hand in hand with another one we're about to see because they lost a player that they had committed. I thought Uzan was going to stay in the draft, but he's coming back. And Houston loses LJ Cryer, but they have gained a lot. Like,
sure he doesn't have another year left somehow, some way. It just feels like one of those players that never leaves.
I think he's done.
LJ?
I think he's done. And we'll see. Like, I don't think he was really talked about. He might have gone to the NBA draft combine, but I think his is more in the G League right now. But he can shoot, so people are going to give him a shot. But Milos Uzan, and then the other one would go. Can you go to Pop Isaacs here, Garrett?
Yeah.
Hang on. Because they're tied in together. Pop Isaacs originally he was Texas Tech, then he went to Creighton, then he had committed to Houston, but then Milos Uzan came back and he's like, well, I better go somewhere else. And he went to Texas A&M, who also then picked up Mackenzie Mbako, who was going to be a second-round pick. He comes in, and Buckyball year one is looking like a really interesting roster there in College Station that's forming. We'll see how they take to that style, but I think, Buckyball in a major league in the SEC with some of the guys he's picking up, it's going to be a fun experiment for sure.
Yeah.
Full court press, bombing threes.
Yeah, no, he seems to have done. They needed, boy, I tell you what, they needed to get something, and they got it. It looked. By the way, Kim Coulter, do you think that K-State's transfer portal class in basketball is better than what Texas Tech has put together? Probably a team that ends up within the top 10. Texas Tech, to me, was top 10 before whatever they did in the portal because of what Grant McCaslin's doing, who they have, and whether or not, who has the highest rated transfer portal. There's several different sites to do that, but it's a great question and also a point. So there we are with McGoffrey. You mentioned him from A&M. Now, yesterday, or was it Monday? Remember Monty Williams played in the NBA? Pretty good player. Good coach. 2022 NBA Coach of the Year, his son Elijah, one of the best players in the country, commits to play for Scott Drew in Baylor. So they ended up getting a player with some NBA pedigree, and Elijah Williams commits to Scott Drew. And, you talk about a roster that was shredded. Everybody was basically gone other than the incoming freshmen. In the end, they were able to piece together, which has to be grueling, a pretty darn good class themselves, plus with the incoming freshmen they have. So Elijah Williams, that's not for this year. That's one of the top recruits, high school basketball players for 2026.
I think they picked up a guy for this year from Nigeria, though.
Big, tall, lanky wingspan, as our good friend Ashley Hodge used to always allude to. Paul, I don't know much about Yaxel Lendeborg. Has committed to play at Michigan with Dusty May.
Well, he was going to be drafted in the first round, but probably towards the back of it. And he had transferred to Michigan before and then put his name in the draft. Did really well. In fact, there was a ton of buzz about him at the NBA draft combine, but it was still, he wasn't going to crack that top 15. He's making a lot of money to go play for Dusty May at Michigan in his senior season. So this is a big news for the Wolverines. When they asked him a few weeks ago, he was like, I'm 60-40 going to Michigan. And I thought, like, okay, well, he's going to be there at the NBA Combine in Chicago, and they're going to be like, hey, you know what's awesome? Not going to class,
Yeah.
Hey, you know what's a better city than Ann Arbor? Any of the 32 NBA, or 30 NBA cities, those kind of things. But he decides to go to Ann Arbor, and watch out for Dusty May year 2 there.
Yeah, they were good. They were good. By the way, it's interesting that the Pop Isaac story was that Houston, that's where he was going to go, right? And then all of a sudden, Houston has these decisions with Uzan and others. And then I saw a quote from Kelvin Sampson. I don't want to misquote him, but somebody asked about players who aren't at Houston now. And they said, well, they started to count the bodies we have. A bunch of hellacious players. back and also the ones they've added during the offseason. So there we are with some college basketball. I think we covered them all, didn't we not, Garrett?
Yep, got them
covered
all.
all of them, at least up until what?
Here is just about an hour ago. R.J. Lewis from St. John's famously got benched.
Yes.
If you'll remember, he is staying in the NBA draft.
That's L-U-I-S.
Yeah.
He's the guy that, Patino sat him down, and then in the post game after they lost that game, a reporter was kind of kept asking him about it, and Patino was trying to be kind because he couldn't shoot, he couldn't make shots, and he didn't want to go there with that, so he ends up staying in the NBA draft. So, Bracket Cat, it would have been great if you can get Matthew Driscoll on the show. Yeah, well, we mentioned Matthew Driscoll. He's now with Jerome Tang at K-State.
Yeah, well, we can ask. He's an old friend. Used to bring me donuts in the morning.
Did he really at the show?
He would. He was the first coach. Like, I had interviewed Coach Drew, but he was the first coach who just personally had reached out to me because I was doing a morning show, and it was Steve Fallon decided not to do it with me, and it was all of a sudden my show after a year and a half. And Matt Driscoll was very supportive of me. I guess he enjoyed the show and listening on his way in the morning, and he would randomly just show up and bring me donuts. So I love Matt Driscoll. I would lay down in traffic for that guy.
I think you should go up and drive to Manhattan and go
bring
say
us
hi
some
to him.
donuts. Yeah.
All right, when we come back, Matt Flynn, his thoughts about a new career in sports talk radio with Jacob Hester, one of the greats from LSU, his thoughts about college football and much more. What would he do to maybe change, fix, or leave things alone? That's next. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people you can count on for all of your automotive needs, whether looking to get into a brand new vehicle, looking to get into a pre-owned vehicle, or looking to just get your vehicle worked on and kept in tip-top shape, like with oil changes or in need of repairs. They can make it look like brand new over at Richard Carr. And right now they're celebrating our great nation with a red, white, and blue savings event. Every new or used car and truck is priced with special American-size savings. So, for example, you can save on a 2025 GMC Sierra 1500 SLE and SLT models in stock, and qualified buyers can save nearly $9,000, $8,750 to be exact. You can also save $750 on the new 2025 Buick Envista, which recently named a 2024 Car and Driver's Editor's Choice. Those are a couple of the models that are on the lot right now from the newer offerings. But if you're looking for a pre-owned vehicle, well, right now during the red, white, and blue sales tag event, they've got hundreds of used cars that are priced to move for your upcoming summer travel, and all pre-owned vehicles go through a 172-point inspection, as their goal is 100% credit approval and putting you in the best ride possible. So those are some of the offerings they've got going on right now. You can go by the dealership, talk to them more in person, visit the website, Richard Carr, that's KARR.com, or give them a phone call. Or they're locally owned. They're locally run, and they're celebrating 26 years of business in the Waco area. So do business with a dealership that gives back to the local community and deal with people you can count on at Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financials, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here They're used to lights. They're used to water in their mouth. They're used to experience. They already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
1, 2.
I'm in love with a man named Rudy. I'm okay with that. He knows exactly what I want. He keeps me coming back. He cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. Does the dishes too. I'm in love with a man named Rudy. Last name Barbecue. It sure is easy to fall in love with Rudy's tasty oak smoked barbecue.
Next in line.
This is 365 Sports.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
He has now started a new career among what has been a great life for Matt Flynn. Now on 104.5 FM in Baton Rouge with Jacob Hester, called Off the Bench. And, of course, former LSU and longtime NFL quarterback. And we've known Matt Flynn, I have, since I've known Craig, a very, very young age, when he was a hell of a youth pitcher, football player, and more. Matt, Craig's with us. Paul Catalina, David Smoak, how you been?
I'm great. How are y'all doing? It's great to talk to y'all again.
You too, Matt. Great to have you on the show. So let's discuss your new career, which you've played the game. You have great insight, experience on the game. How did all this kind of come about?
Yeah, so I've been going on the radio with these guys for about 6 years now. Jacob Hester, former teammate of mine at LSU, on the national championship team with me, played 5 or 6 years in the NFL. He came down to Baton Rouge probably 6 years ago to start a show. And I've been going on with him probably an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours a week for 5 or 6 years. And about 3 years ago, he joined the morning show with a guy named T-Bob Hebert, who was also a former player or a former teammate of ours. And son of the old the Cajun Cannon, Bobby Hebert. T-Bob just took a job, uber talented guy, just took a job with Barstool. So Jake came to me after T-Bob left and said, "Hey man, have you ever thought about doing this? Would you like to do it?" And my immediate reaction was, "There's no way. I don't have the time to do this." But after talking with the wife and the family, we just decided that it was a great opportunity, and we're really looking forward to it.
Matt, look, first of all, there is not a better personality fit than T-Bob and Barstool, for sure. He's going to do very, very well up there. Is there anything that makes you nervous about it, or having done it for a while, is it going to be easy?
Look, yeah, I am a little nervous of a few things. I'm the guy that comes on a couple of hours a week, and I don't really have to be all that prepared. I'm kind of the guy that just kind of that fights the host and argues against them and does this and that. But I'm a little nervous for the interview part of it, and then the live advertisement reads for sponsors, things like that. I think there's some skill involved with that, so it'll take me a little while to get used to that. But I mean, I don't know how y'all do it, David. You've been doing it for so long. How do you find things to talk about for 3 hours every single day? We'll see.
Well, we're full of it, first of all, and it'll come naturally to you because you played the game, so your opinions are going to be from that perspective, which we don't have. None of the three of us have, and but no, I mean,
I think Matt, you're in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. You just talk LSU. I think you'll be fine, man.
I know, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, we'll chop it up about, of course, all the LSU sports. We got the Saints to talk about, Pelicans, but Jacob Hester is great. So he works with the on Sirius with Nationwide. He used to be with the SEC Network on Sirius. Now he does the big ESPN on Sirius. So he covers everything. So he's pretty versed in everything that's going on coast to coast. So it's going to be good to lean on that. So it's going to be really a show that
There's not going to be really any script for it. We're going to cover local. We'll cover national sports, and God knows what else we're going to cover. We're old team. I mean, he's one of my best friends, so it almost sounds like it's just two buddies just arguing and yelling at each other in the locker room when we get on with each other.
That's talk radio, basically.
Yeah.
So that's just going to work perfectly fine. For those interested, June 2nd, right? That's your start date.
Yeah. Next this coming Monday. That's right. So we'll be on 7 to 10 Monday through Friday, and then. Hey, I think the biggest following that the show has, I mean, we're on YouTube and get a really good following on YouTube. So I think Jake and I, we got a lot of relationships. So we'll have a lot of former NFL, current NFL players, coaches. We're going to have a lot of cool guests on, and it's just going to be exciting. There's so many avenues for listeners to have. There's so many they can listen to traditional radio. They can do podcasts, YouTube. They can do there's so many ways to get your content now. We're probably not going to be the most traditional. Let's talk, all the stats about everything. We're gonna give a live look at the player's perspective. Not just like what a player did, but why he did it and what the thought process. Really kind of taking it to the next level of breaking down what happened and why it happened.
So, what is your perspective with college football overall? So much has changed, my God, since you won a national title at LSU, 20 years ago. What is your perspective and how you looked at the over game of college football and where it's at?
Yeah, it's it's a question that the answer probably changes year to year right now because it's changing so much. I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad that's happening right now. But the one thing that people can't argue with is the product on the field is incredible. It's as good as it's ever been. I think it's the drama and the headache and the lack of old school traditionalism in college football that kind of bothers some people. Some people it doesn't. But as far as like the NIL, the pay for play, like all that stuff, I was a big proponent of it before it happened. I just felt that the NCAA and how it happened, they did the right thing, but they did it the wrong way. And there's you can't really put the toothpaste back in the bottle, but hopefully things get worked out a little bit better. I just think they left it to the wrong people to make the rules instead of having a set of rules that they're going to launch with. They just kind of open the floodgates and let legislators, let business people kind of make the rules. And now it's kind of an uphill battle to fix it, if it can be fixed, or if even it needs to be fixed, whatever your opinion is on it. But at the end of the day, the product is great on the field. I originally thought that the pay per play was really going to make it a top heavy league, but it really is kind of given a lot of parity because top athletes, if they're not happy in their first couple of years at these top schools, they spread out and they go to schools all over of all different sizes. So I've felt like it's been a really good product on the field and watching it now. Like I said, I wish they would have handled it a little bit differently. And it was a little bit more controllable. It's got to be a nightmare to be a head coach right now on trying to figure out how to coach, who to coach, how to coach. Do I coach them hard? Do I coach them light? Because I'm always recruiting, no matter if they've signed on the dotted line or not.
Matt, when it comes to that, I mean, you guys had a team that you could lose a 5-star guard, and then a 5-star guard who just played less would step in. Is that also the thing? Is like, well, now you had 2 5-star guards, but one of them transferred. The next guy. Maybe a junior who was a little engine that could and is not nearly as good. So it's dropped off just enough to bring the SEC a little bit back closer to the pack.
Yeah, it really has. And obviously I'm pretty biased to the position, but no position's highlighted that more than the quarterback position, of course, because there's only one that can play. I mean, if you look at offensive linemen, defensive linemen, linebacker room, DB room, like, there's a rotation. You got your starting 5 on the offensive lineman, but any given game, 7 to 8 guys are rolling through there usually. So there's, you have to have a really good 8 guys going into the season at offensive lineman. But at quarterback, it's very rare for these top schools to have a really good guy behind. LSU was very fortunate when Jaden Daniels was here because Garrett Nussmeier was right under him. Now we've fluctuated some guys since then, but you have to keep your starting quarterback upright. You got to keep him healthy. That's obviously it's a team sport. So you gotta block well, you got to protect well, and then you got to get a little bit lucky. Injuries are part of the game. So, but at the quarterback position, man, it's just hard to look around and say, yeah, we've got two studs at quarterback, and if someone happens to our starter, we feel really good about our backup. That's just, you can't see that. You don't see that a ton around the country right now.
You played in the BCS era and obviously had a lot of success, couple of the national title teams that you were a part of, including the great ending to your career there. I still vividly remember the SI cover, Matt, with you and the crystal football, and it's just such a cool shot. But we've now seen what's evolved since then. And what are your ideal postseason thoughts? If it was up to Matt Flynn, hey, you're commissioner of college football, what do you like for the game as far as a postseason goes?
Man. Oh, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? I think everybody's got an opinion about this. I mean, I didn't think there was much wrong with the BCS. I'm very biased because it worked out for us. We're the first ever, two-loss team to get in and win it. So obviously very biased there. The playoffs to me is great. I don't know. I know there's a lot of talk right now, especially I think it's SEC coaches meetings right now in Jasper, Florida. I know Greg Sankey's been talking a lot about what he's like, trying to make sure that SEC and Big Tens are both guaranteed a certain amount of spots.
Right.
There's just so much that like the butterfly effect of all those different decisions is so widespread. It's hard to say that there's ever going to be a perfect system in place. At the end of the day, I want to see the best 12 teams. Now, who's going to judge that? I don't think the committee is always very good at that. So I don't know if I would like to see probably some sort of BCS computer system that takes into consideration a lot of different things. Then a big group of guys at a round table, raising their right hand on which team should be in. So I think there should be some sort of formula involved. We want to see good games at the beginning of the year, right? We want to see the big boys play big boys non-conference games. I hate watching on a Saturday a big school play a little school. That doesn't intrigue me. That doesn't do anything for you. There's always that one Saturday every single season where there's no big games. It's a terrible Saturday to watch college football. So you want to see, like LSU, we've stepped up and we're playing. Our record's not very good first game of the season, but we're playing Clemson this year. We played USC the year last season, first game. We just signed a home and away with SMU. Like, you want those matchups, but if the SEC and the Big Ten aren't guaranteed a certain amount of spots, that stuff's going to start leaving. You're not going to get those interconference big matchups. They'll go back to scheduling, Louisiana Tech or whoever it is on those weeks, just so they don't have a chance to get those losses. So, like I said, there's a big butterfly effect to it. I don't have the right answer, but I'd like to see some sort of system in place that really can determine, based on a set of rules, on who the best 12 are, instead of just a bunch of people's opinion.
Matt Flynn with us, 104.5, about to start that talk show with Jacob Hester. He's been doing it, but it launches on June the 1st.
Matt, I was covering your game against the Cowboys in December of 2013. And the second half was masterful. You guys were getting drubbed going into halftime. You come in the game. I've wondered this for a long time. When you are in a zone like you were and the team is just humming, is there any like kind of like out of body experience, or like somebody tells you after, like, hey, you completed 11 passes in a row at one time, and you're like, holy crap, really? Like, do you understand it when it's going on, or you just have to ride the flow?
Oh man, what a question. So there is being in the zone as a quarterback, or really any position, whether it's a pitcher, kicker, or whoever it is. Usually it's a skill position that gets in the zone. There's really no explaining what it is. Everything just slows down. it's hard to get in that zone. The great quarterbacks, the great players can get in that zone quickly. And sometimes they can start the game out that way. But it's just everything slows down. Confidence is at an all-time high. It's like you're playing in the backyard. Like I remember playing in that game and just, making throws, back shoulder throws that like if it was the first play of the game, probably not even trying to make that throw. But you just get confident, you get in the zone, you see things, and then it's just, you almost feel like there's nothing they can do to stop you. Everybody's on the same page. And I think the rest of the team can also feel that, right? They can, it's the way you talk to them in the huddle, the way your body language, things like that. But yeah, what an experience that game was. I had come off a rough year. I started in Oakland, got cut, and then I ended up back in Green Bay and started the last half of that season while Aaron was recovering from an injury. And yeah, it was cool. Being able to go play the Cowboys, the team I grew up cheering for, of course, being from Tyler. My whole family was there. My brother, who's like the biggest Cowboy fan in the world, he was decked out head to toe in green and yellow. Man, what an experience that was. It was probably, besides the BCS championship and the Super Bowl I was fortunate enough to be a part of in 2010, that was probably the greatest football experience that I had ever had, just because of the rocky road of the season. Didn't know if my career was going to be over or not. Then coming back and being able to do that against the team I loved growing up, and grew up in Super Bowl parties for the Cowboys all in the 90s. Being able to do that was just a really, really cool thing I got to experience.
So you got the BCS, a couple BCS titles, Super Bowl. So you had a nice run in high school as well, not a state championship, but I guess is that the one thing missing there, the trifecta, right?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Sure.
I was there. I mourned it as well.
Yeah, that's the one black guy I got on the career is we lost to Midland High in the semifinals.
Yep.
Yeah.
What a heartbreaker that was. That was I still wake up with some cold sweats for that game.
Didn't you have a broken bone in your foot and you could not be who you were because you had that dual threat? You had, I'll never forget, you had a bootleg early on that year against Longview and outran everybody. But did that not kind of come back to hurt you in not being full throttle, with all due respect to Midland High?
Yeah, I think I broke so we were playing double round robin that year with us, Lufkin, Longview, and John Tyler. It was on this 4-team district. And last game of the season, we were drumming John Tyler, and I broke my foot on right towards the end of the game. So I had to go in that with the dual threat kind of taken off, but just all throwing.
I know that it's probably never going to happen again, and I can't imagine how difficult it was, but that round robin was pretty badass from a high school football fan standpoint to have those programs home and away, everybody. I mean, I know it was grueling, but man, that was some cool. That was cool. That was awesome to watch unfold.
It was that was awesome. It was an ass kicker. I mean, everybody came out of there, bloodied up a little bit, but it was. Looking back on it, it was awesome. There was so much talent, so much D1 talent on those fields during those years. It was incredible.
I just wonder, you being from Tyler, did you ever cross paths with Patrick Mahomes, or have you crossed paths with Patrick Mahomes as being a couple big time quarterbacks from the same place?
Yeah, a little bit. Nothing past a greeting, a hello, like what's up, or seeing them on the field or anything like that. So nothing too much past the standard, hey, how you doing? Good to meet you type deal.
Man,
but, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, he of course is having himself an incredible career.
He's doing all right for himself.
He seems to be doing okay. So
I've heard of him.
I don't. When was the last time that you ever talked to Tim Powers?
Oh, it's been a long time since I've talked to Tim Powers. What was really crazy, a story here, when I went to Seattle and signed with them as a free agent, the starting center there was Max Unger. He was from Hawaii, played at Oregon, and I remember Tim Powers trained us when I was in high school.
Yep.
Helped a lot of my speed and just becoming a better athlete to him. Remember, he left Tyler after my senior year and he moved to Hawaii.
Yep.
And I got to Seattle and I met Max, and Max said when he trained with Tim Powers and Tim Powers helped him become a better athlete and get the University of Oregon as well. So we had a cool connection there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because Max was about three years younger than I was, and yeah, Tim went out there and trained him.
I bring that up. He was a part of Trinity Mother Frances Health System, and he turned you into what you were already a good athlete. But one thing I want to share this story, and I want you to give us your feedback, and we'll let you go. And great to talk to you again. When you were in high school, you didn't, you had Ty Wright. I mean, head to head with you guys, and you at times had to be disappointed. Then you went to college, and there's Jamarcus Russell, and yet you won the national title. And in the NFL, there's Aaron Rodgers, among others. You might be one of the most resilient guys that I've ever known. You never stopped, and you kept plugging, and you've had a hell of a football career in the end, and now a hell of a businessman.
Yeah, it was. I wish I could say it was a lot easier than it was. Certainly, but I just was always around good athletes, like you said in high school. Like I remember Ty Wright beat me out in 7th grade. I beat him out in 8th grade. Then he beat me out as a sophomore. He was the varsity quarterback, and I was the backup. Never played. And then after that, just. I remember my dad telling me, he was like, well, you can either, you got two choices here, Matt. He said, you can either accept it and ride the wave, or you can decide to work your tail off and beat him. And so, obviously I chose the latter.
And you did. Yeah.
And we did. So, we started the last couple of years. We were actually into the junior year. Me and Ty were splitting series into the second game of the season, and then at halftime, the coaches told me to go in there the whole time. But and then college was I signed with Jamarcus Russell. He signed like 2 days after me, like a day or two after signing day, and then obviously first overall pick. Whether I was dumb or overly confident, I thought I could beat him out every single year, and it just didn't work out. And then he entered the draft early, and I got a year to play, and got to the NFL.
Won a national title, won a Super Bowl, as Craig brought up last. And I wish that they could use you as an example in this day and age where everybody just leaves or transfers, or they don't want to have that competition. And not that you might have made different decisions if those rules were around, but I think that's a great story for a lot of young men and anyone to think about.
Yeah, and let me piggyback on what you're saying right there. If you want somebody to cheer for, I know your audience isn't my audience here in Louisiana, but if you're looking for somebody to cheer for, it's Garrett Nussmeier at LSU. The quarterback has the exact same story almost as me, but in this day and age with the NIL. The kid sat down. He was supposed to be the starter when Jaden Daniels transferred in from Arizona State. He stayed, he fought, he learned, he got better. I mean, he goes about his business the right way. He's a good human and a hell of a player. So he's a guy, even if you don't care what LSU does, he's a good guy to cheer for, because he, in this whole world of craziness, he stuck it out and is in his 5th year at LSU.
Yeah, we of course saw him against Baylor in the bowl game, and he lit him up. And that was a very competitive game with what Sawyer Robertson did at Baylor. Garrett is an LSU fan who produces our show. Garrett, want to say hi to Matt?
Yeah, what's up, Matt? No, I was interested that you brought up Nussmeier, because I was thinking, how long does it take to develop and build trust with a new offensive line when you look at the situation that he's walking into with Will Campbell and Emory Jones gone this season?
Yeah, it's really, that's the nature of college football, right? You want the good guys, you want that senior leadership, and then, man, you gotta reload. But you get a couple of good leaders on that team, you can plug and play offensive line as long as you got a couple of anchor guys. But man, they are kind of starting from fresh, and they got a bunch of new faces, but they got a lot of talented guys, man. It takes a little while. I mean, there's going to be a lot of hiccups. I'm sure spring training, there was a lot of, should I say, hard coaching for those offensive linemen out there. And they'll start figuring out there's going to be little mistakes early in the season, but as long as they can get in a rhythm, and those offensive linemen, they got to be so in sync with each other when they're passing off stunts and games from those defensive, those ETs, the Ts, when they're passing off, they got to be so in sync with each other. So, man, it's really got to coach them well, and you got to have the right guys in there. So we'll see. That's going to be the big question, because loaded at receiver, loaded at great quarterback, really good young running back room, and we got a much better defense than we've had in the last couple of years. So offensive lineman is going to make or break it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Matt. Great to have you on the show. Good luck on June 2nd. I said June 1st, but June 2nd when you start that show officially with Jacob. Great to have you on. Great to hear from you. Have a great rest of the week.
Yeah, thanks for the time, guys. I appreciate it.
Matt Flynn with us on Baton Rouge Radio. And now we'll be doing the show with Jacob Hester, full throttle, on June the 2nd. What a story that's been. When we come back, Paul's Top 5 and Andrew Valade in the poll results. And this is 365 Sports.
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com. That's CLEAN email.com. Founded in 1910, Samsonite is the world leader in durable, high-quality luggage and travel accessories. Made to the highest standards, our products won't let you down. We give you the confidence to get out there and explore. Inspired by the past, devoted to the present, and built to inspire a multi-generational future, Samsonite is here to elevate your journey. Travel with Samsonite and pack confidence every step of the way. Shop now at shop.samsonite.com. Samsonite.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5. I thought we would dive today into the 5 events that sent the SEC into an emotional tailspin that involves them now questioning the very existence of a committee that did their bidding for so long. And look, it's a harrowing tale. So, I mean, if you're not emotionally, or Garrett, are you emotionally ready for this?
Man, I don't know. I'm kind of nervous.
Okay, it's a harrowing tale of, look, if you're SEC fans, this gets really graphic. It's bloody. There are 3 SEC losses mentioned in this.
That's unheard of.
3 SEC. I know that they like to ignore them, but let's go into it right now. Number 5. This is the first thing that happened. On September 28th of 2024, Kentucky defeated Ole Miss. And unbeknownst to the SEC, Kentucky would wind up with a losing record. Actually, we all kind of knew this was going to happen anyway, and this was bad for Ole Miss and eliminated from playoff contention essentially here. But Ole Miss would rally, picking up some nice wins along the way, but they'd also drop 2 more games. One to LSU on what could be called a middle-of-the-road year for the Tigers, and another one to Alabama, a team also very much in question here. Now, who's not mentioned in this segment is South Carolina, who took 3 losses, but unfortunately for them, nobody had them in contention anyway before the season started, so they were kind of the 3rd SEC team in the left-out bubble. Number 4, the very next week, number 1, Alabama, something they weren't again after this point, loses to Vanderbilt. Yes, that Vanderbilt. It happened. We all saw it.
You can, pretend that it didn't if you're an SEC fan. But Vandy did beat Alabama on October 5th. This was something that really sent the SEC world and the front office there into a tailspin, because how could this happen? But it's Alabama. Everything will be fine. People will forget about this, right? It will not come back to bite them. Well, Alabama would go on to lose a second time and then a third time. And the third one was to Oklahoma. And they got drilled 24-3. And you would say, well, that's not so bad. Oklahoma's historically great, right? Here they are coming into the SEC where they have a rightful place as one of the blue bloods of college football. And I would say most years in human history, you would be correct, sir. But this was the most milquetoast, boring, terrible offensive Oklahoma team ever. And they beat Alabama 24-3. An Oklahoma team that lost 6 times. Not good. Like Vandy, also lost 6 times. Although Vandy, feel good story. Still love you, Vandy. Number 2, one that happened outside the SEC that affected them, happened on title week when Clemson beat SMU in the ACC title game on a last-second field goal. That puts a 3-loss team in the playoff. Why? Not because the SEC had 3 3-loss teams with reasonably good resumes, except for, some of the games we've talked about. But Clemson is now the ACC champ. SMU has less losses. They've had a great season. Matter of fact, their only other loss was to BYU, a team that probably didn't get as much playoff consideration as it deserved. So how can you leave an 11-2 SMU out and, now that Clemson has taken their automatic spot? Well, the committee dares to give them only 3 teams out of 12. And that has led to this in Destin, and since then, that they're trying to push all these ways to change the committee and the rules and all these things, when all that had to happen was Clemson had to miss a field goal. Alabama had to beat Vandy, not lose to Oklahoma by 21. Ole Miss could have just beaten Kentucky, and none of this would be changing. They would just be saying, let's add 4 teams and let's not do all this. But these are the 5 events that bring us here now to an SEC meetings where they're questioning every single thing about the playoffs, regardless of what it all means, and trying to eschew any kind of responsibility they have on themselves for not winning enough games. Something that they've done to everybody else the entire time that they've existed. Yes, I am picking on the SEC. I am happy to pick on the Big Ten as soon as Tony Petitti opens his mouth, which he doesn't do, which has made poor Greg Sankey out to be the bad guy. And I do think that that's not fair to Greg Sankey, that he's out there taking bullets and Tony Petitti's behind here pulling strings and maybe putting him in this position a little bit. But these are the events that have led us here for the SEC. Those 5 things happened. And this is why they're all mad. Think about that. This thing was decided on the field, but they want you to give them mulligans for their regular season. No wonder they don't want to play 9 games. It's one more thing for them to complain about not getting mulligans for. That's going to do it for the top 5. Smokey, read some polls.
All right, I will. And we have Andrew Valade, who put up a couple of polls. He does it every day. And this one, which regional matchup, NCAA baseball tournament starting on Friday, are you the most excited to watch? Clemson with Kentucky, West Virginia from the Big 12, and also, who else is in there?
That is upstate out of South Carolina.
So, okay, all right. And then also, next is Oxford, and then, of course, Knoxville, and then the one in Conway, too. All right, that's it. That's 64 votes. 90 votes here. Should the SEC and Big Ten schedule annual crossover games? Yes, with 59%, followed by nope, keep conference play exclusive. And then after that, you have maybe, but only for bowl games, only if it boosts the playoff chances. Thank you, Andrew, very much for your poll results. How would you have voted about that? I love the fact that they're going to play.
I want more big games.
Yeah, I do too. Craig, you too?
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, I don't just ignore all the collateral damage that creates.
There is some of that,
and I don't think that we signed up for NFL knockoff, but that's quickly the direction it's heading, just like we thought it was a couple years ago. And so we're here, and we'll see where it eventually goes. But you're setting up the playoff if you're the SEC to get as many auto bids as possible while also trying to change your schedule. So I can understand if you're Greg Sankey and you're going to play, depending on who you are, you're all going to play a Big Ten team, but some are going to play Ohio State and Michigan and Oregon. Some are going to play Purdue, and we used to say Indiana all the time, right? But now it's Northwestern. So that's going to be a little bit of a difference. But again, if you're South Carolina and you draw a tough Big Ten team or even a middle-of-the-road Big Ten team, and then you play Clemson, and then you play 9 SEC games, and then you play your one gimme game, your one payday game, I can see where you feel like you deserve to be in the playoff more than somebody who hasn't played a schedule that's nearly anywhere close to that. And we could pick any number of teams, but there are going to be a lot of differences in those strengths of schedules. So you can see where they're coming from with that. But, yeah, I'm all for the Big Ten SEC crossover. And I know we did the hypothetical ACC Big 12. I think that's the only thing you can do if you're them is you got to do something similar. Now, it's not going to produce the same amount of big games, but I think if you do it right, then you can still create some big games that would be of interest. And obviously the intent would be to boost your strength of schedule as well. So it's not just, think of like who does Tech play this year? Kennesaw State, Oregon State, and there's somebody else in there. So you compare that to what somebody else might have. You got the same overall record. Like that's, so if you can bolster your non-con and have some years be Florida State or Miami in there, I don't think that would do anything but help. So I think it might not produce the amount of great I know it wouldn't produce the amount of great matchups on paper, but it's still better than the
what are they going to say if you don't? Because they're like, hey, we're out there playing the Big Ten. What are you guys doing?
Like playing Kennesaw State.
You're playing Kennesaw State as opposed to they can say like, look, you guys won't schedule us obviously, so we're going to play each other. And you know what, Kansas, like, if you're Georgia Tech, like, hey, we played Kansas State this year and beat them. If you're Iowa State, like, hey, we played Miami and beat them. Like, let's go.
And then you got to beat them.
Yeah.
Garrett, thank you very much running the mothership, and Andrew Valade with what you do. Thank you throwing out all that content. Emery Winters working on 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 on the CW. We appreciate all of your time you spend with us. Every day, we're back again tomorrow at 3. Our thoughts and prayers to Alex Foster and his family, the former Baylor lineman who was killed earlier today on this Wednesday. For Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, I'm David Smoak. Good night on 365 Sports.